Hello and welcome to the BNB Show. My name is Brandon Kane. I think we are live. Are we live, Brandon?
We're live on YouTube. We're live on YouTube. We're good.
Okay, we're good. Well, welcome to the BNB Show. We got a little bit of a glitch here initially, but welcome to the BNB Show. My name is Brandon Kane. My guy over here on the left side, of course, is Seahawks. Brandon Nelson back in the house here to help me take one last final look here at this Colts game. We got to do a little bit of it, but then also, of course, previewing the matchup of the year, the biggest matchup that we've got on the books here so far this season. The Rams, prime time, Brendan, everything on the line. How you doing, man? Are you getting as hyped up as I am already with this a couple days out?
Yeah, it's hard not to be, man. Whatever you think of this team right now, whatever you think of our chances on Thursday, how do you not get excited? Like, this is quite possibly going to go down as the most important regular season game all year for any team. So you can't ask for much more than that, man. Even if it goes badly right now, yeah, you got to be pumped up.
You really do. And it's also fun to have that, like we had in the first matchup, but you're going to have already all the eyes of everybody watching you here in the country, because a lot of people do feel like these are two of the best teams just point blank in the league right now. And that's also a cool part with it being on prime time. So here we go, locked and loaded. The Seahawks have set the stage for this matchup by getting the hard work done, Brendan. And look, it's been an easier schedule here through this part of the year and through most of the season. There's not acknowledging a little bit of that. There's been some quality wins in there as well. But you just had to find a way to get to this stage. And this past Sunday, as we have to look at it, even but just for a short look here, was one about just finding a way with a few different factors that, to me, in retrospect, weren't really working in your favor. Give me your perspective on this Colts game, because, of course, there's a little bit of that, as there always seems to be a split in the Seahawks fan base, from those who say, hey, just get the wins by any means necessary, find a way, versus those who say, oh, wait, this is drifting in a wrong direction. This isn't moving with the same kind of progress rate that we had seen earlier in the year.
I think that frustration after that game on Sunday is pretty valid. I think that it is it was a pretty difficult game to watch. There were a lot of frustrating elements at play. Obviously, not every element of the team played badly, but it did kind of feel like that even though the game was consistently close, and obviously Seattle was close enough to win the game at the end, it did kind of feel like the Colts controlled that game and played the game they wanted to play, and Seattle was kind of unable to take them out of the game that they wanted to play. And I do think that there is some legitimate concern there, especially as it pertains to the offense, where there's just a lot of things going on that you don't like right now. I said a couple weeks ago that, or actually this is now over a month ago, and I think you kind of did too, that adding Rashid Shaheed should open up this rushing attack because it forces the defense to play back. And for the first few games, that's what was happening. But this game, to see the run game struggle this much against a Colts team with no outside corners because they're all hurt, was very disheartening to me. And it kind of does lend credence to the idea that there are issues with a running game that will not go away this season. And there's a deeper issue than just, oh, we didn't have enough speed on the outside. We've added one of the fastest receivers in, I mean, I'll say at least the current NFL. He's probably one of the fastest in NFL history, honestly. And it's made things better, but it feels like there hasn't been a big improvement there. And you look at even the other side of the ball, the defense, they did play well, but I felt like the Colts were able to play the game they wanted to play, even if they didn't get the win. And they felt like they were the guys kind of dictating the way that game went. So there is frustration here. And I think that it's very valid to feel that frustration. I don't think that the people that are starting to really wonder about this team are entirely wrong to do so. What I will say, and we'll find out more about this in a couple days, there's a very good chance this team was looking ahead to LA. And I'm not happy about it. I can't say I totally blame them for it, though. And this is something that every NFL team does. Every NFL team, even the all-time greats, they have that weird week where they're thinking about the big game the next week, especially when it's a quick turnaround and you're playing on Thursday night, you're playing 4 days later. And it cannot be avoided. Even the all-time great NFL teams had games like that. So I'm not going to panic about it, but I understand the frustration. I don't think that it's without a few valid points.
When it comes to pinpointing, yes, it's easy to say on this. Well, there's three or four things going on with the running game, but when you go to the main villain as to why this running game has not improved as really the years gone along, or that it has not gotten better, at least in finding consistency from my perspective, what would be the main reason you would pinpoint if drawn to?
I do feel like there is a little bit of a lack of reliability up front more than anything else. I feel like that we don't necessarily have bad players on this offensive line. These guys are not playing badly, but I do feel like it's hard to depend on them to come through. Like I look at a team like the Detroit Lions, right? I look at a team like Detroit, and even this year where they're clearly not as good as they've been for the last couple of years, when they need a 3rd and 4, they have full confidence that they can just give it to Jahmyr Gibbs and he's going to go get it. And the guys up front are going to do their job every single time. And it's going to take an extraordinary play from a defender to stop the run. And we don't have anything like that. We have no trust from snap to snap that, oh, we need this 2 yards. This is 4th and 2 game on the line. We can just give it to K9 and he's automatically going to get it. We don't have that. So even though the guys up front are not necessarily bad, and Anthony Bradford is kind of the perfect poster child for this because Anthony Bradford is not playing badly. He's just so inconsistent. You cannot count on him from snap to snap. So I feel like that's probably where it starts, but I could definitely be talked into a couple other things as well.
Well, I'm definitely in that same camp of it. I'm glad to hear you are as well. I think I feel like you get people that get caught up on some of the traditional stuff. That people get caught up in the run game and kind of get away from that base aspect of guys must clear holes for running backs to be able to operate. And I see there are certain segments of the Hawk fan base getting caught up on running backs and running back replacements, and Charbonnet's not good enough, and Walker's not good enough. And I keep coming back to, as I have for a long period of time, those two guys being here, that you just do not open up enough consistent holes, and that the negative plays that come in the run game, it's not a matter of just the 3 yards in a cloud of dust, as I talked about in my wrap-up video. It's that there's penetration. It's that there's negative plays. It's that you're getting yourself so far behind the sticks on early downs because of your commitment to run, and then because of your awfulness at running the ball with any kind of consistency. And it just leads the offense as a whole, in my opinion, Brendan, why I bring this up. I think it leads the offense as a whole of really being the core point and problem right now on our offense when we pull back everything to a kind of an origin.
Right. And I don't know if it's going to get better this year. That's the thing, right? Like early this year, the problem was, to me, the stacked box rate, because we didn't have a lot of speed on the outside. Defenses didn't really respect our ability to go down the field. So they stacked the box and we couldn't run. And that was something you could mitigate by going to get a Rashid Shaheed. And that's worked great, in my opinion. I think Shaheed's been great. Last 2 games really starting to catch on in this offense. I'm liking what I see. There's not a lot you can do here. There's not a lot you can do about it. Honestly, like even if you did replace one player, it's not just one player. Like Gray Zabel is a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. He is making a lot of mistakes. And, it's part of the process, but it's not something that I think is going to go away in the next month. Jalen Sundell, good to see him back this week. I like him. I appreciate him, but not a great run blocker. Not much you can do about that right now. And, Bradford, we already talked about Bradford. He does make really good plays out there. He does do some awesome stuff, but this is not going to, I don't think these guys are going to wake up and become the Detroit Lions run blocking unit tomorrow or anything like that.
So let's drive forward on a possible solution here that would be not an easy one, I think, for them to pull as far as the lever goes. But a big part of this comes from commitment to running the ball, early commitment to running the ball on early downs. Does maybe the change need to be, as we look at this offensive line and what they actually can do? Charles Cross is at his strength in pass protection. Abraham Lucas is at his strength in pass protection. Zabel's in his strength at pass protection. Sundell, whatever strengths he has, is in pass protection. Anthony Bradford, whatever strengths he has, is by and large in pass pro, though he can give you some good run reps in addition to that. So I guess is maybe the countermeasure on this, rather than just trying to kind of have a pile up offensively where you just ugly decide to keep running it no matter kind of what, you lean into what you do effectively. Having now a Shaheed, having a JSN, having a Cooper Cup rolling relatively well, still Barner in the mix on that too. Is this maybe a time to start to try to adjust into more, trying to throw a little bit more?
What I'm hoping is that the reason why they have been so insistent with a inconsistent run game these last few weeks is they were playing bad opponents that they had confidence that they could win without scoring a ton of points in. And that now that we're getting to these better teams, the Rams, the Panthers, and the Panthers are a good team at home. They are. I know that they may not be a good team overall. They are a good team at home. And the 49ers, there's going to be an understanding that, hey, we might need to actually put up 30 points to win those games. So if you beat your head into the wall running the ball over and over and over again, and you're just trying to get to 20 and hoping that's good enough, that's not going to work. So I am hoping that we see things open up a little bit. As much as the passing attack hasn't been as great as it was early in the season, part of that is because that was an almost impossible standard. They were playing so well, they were not going to be able to keep that up. It's just not realistic. We don't have Jerry Rice and Randy Moss out there. So I am hoping that that is indeed what happens. And I know that it's not what this team wants to do, but we have given them more than enough time to take big steps forward as a rushing attack. And it hasn't happened. I think they've taken some steps. I think if you take a look at the last 6 weeks, our run game has been about average, whereas before it was well below average, well below average. I looked at the numbers. So I'm not saying that it's terrible now, but I don't think it's good enough, especially against some of these teams that we're going to play that are really going to be able to throw some stuff at us. Like we played Atlanta a couple weeks ago. Their run defense is one of the worst in the league, and we still struggled against them. This Colts team, they're not that good against the run. They don't have, especially with no DeForest Buckner out there, they just have some decent guys. They're not strong in the middle, in the interior, and couldn't run on them at all. So yeah, that is what I'm hoping is the solution here. Just open it up a little bit and live with the variance and understand that without that variance, you're not going to really have much of a chance to win most games.
I really think that that's what it comes down to. Is you're down the home stretch of playing tougher teams, getting into the playoffs. You want to try to go win the games. You're not going to just kind of like eke your way through those games by just trying to just do the bare minimum offensively speaking. And I keep coming back to, you just can't afford to have these drives that are just duds over and over again, where this whole point of this offense is to get consistent yards playing and play out. The whole point of this offense and how it's stylistically designed is to at least be able to be churning out some first downs if it can't get points on particular drives, to help counterbalance everything, counterbalance the time of possession, keep your defense fresh, find some consistency against those defenses throughout the day. And instead, it's been a bit of the opposite on it by this base problem that you can kind of pull from. Now, is there going to be some risk to throwing it? Sure. I think some of that gets mitigated, Brendan, when I look at the numbers on how good we are at play action and the fact that we're really still only about a middle of the road play action team. We're going to be looking at the Rams today. They're like one of the number one teams in play action in the sport, very effective at it, and they do it at a high rate. And I think that's where you can lean into some of this too, is just doing a little bit more, a little bit higher of the rate of the play action with an uptick as well on actually throwing the ball just a little bit more, and then find more effectiveness with the offense on the back of it.
I'm not thrilled about it. I know it's not what they want to do, but I don't think you have another choice. Like, I don't believe that we're going to be able to beat a good team the way the offense has played really the last 3 weeks, I would say. And I include Atlanta in that because that was such a slow start. I think a better team would have been up a couple touchdowns on us by the time you get to halftime. And then you're throwing the ball all over the field and abandoning the run anyway.
Yeah. As you said, it's gotten a little tiny better, but it's just not taken a significant step forward, I think, as we had anticipated for a team that wants to lean with the run at the forefront and then go to the pass as the counter. I just think this is a place where there's definitely an opening to do this and change this up a little bit. It's not going to be without a little bit of a price to be paid with it, but I'll be willing to pay that price first. Watching this year, them hammering that running game and just it being such a mess as far as the penetration, the push into the backfield. You're not even getting stalemates, Brendan. I mean, you can't even getting a stalemate is like a challenge for you in the run game, and with multiple guys across the board on given run plays, and it's frustrating to watch. Defensively speaking, from this last game, they did and were able to hang in there with it. We're going to talk about one part of this game that has nothing to do with offense, defense, or special teams, but I did think that the defense was kind of put into a tough predicament in this game, being that you have Philip Rivers coming in there. He's got this connection with Steichen that goes back to the Charger days. So it's like, not only is it the current playbook you're talking about, it's O'Shane remembers all these plays that Philip really runs really well, that he understands how to really lock into. And so you're sort of getting this amalgamation between the two different offenses, along with the difficulty of dealing with them really dedicated to running Taylor at 25 carries on the game. And so it was going to be a challenge in there in this one. I thought overall they really did hold up. I can't really hold them to account too badly on the you should have done more to stuff them down in the perspective. Look, they're pretty healthy on their offensive line, pretty healthy their skill position players. Taylor's is having a good a year as anybody for any running back in the sport. You kept him under 100 yards for now the 23rd straight game, not allowing a 100-yard rusher. I kind of come out of this very encouraged by this performance. Do you feel the same?
Overall, it was a quite good performance, and you're right about the Rivers thing. By the way, it was very interesting. There was a lot of people, even in the national media, saying, "Well, why did they get Phillip Rivers? Why wouldn't they go get a much younger Cam Newton or Colin Kaepernick or I think what's the other quarterback that retired recently that's still relatively young that was good, like
Cam?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, Cam Newton's obviously kind of the big one, but there was also some talk of like maybe even going. You can't sign Tom Brady, by the way, to make that clear, because he's part of the Raiders ownership. That would even Roger Goodell would swing the hammer down on Brady if he tried to do that. But there were a couple other guys, but that thing you said about the connection with Steichen, like that makes Rivers infinitely more valuable than even a younger, recently retired quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does, because it's not just a guy coming off the street to a team he doesn't know, to a playbook that he doesn't know, to a coach you don't know. That's kind of stage that the people were trying to set up with Rivers throughout the week with this matchup. And I just felt like you saw him. Mike talked about it. He's trying to get the ball out of his hands in 0.3 seconds on every play for the most part. It's hard to deal with that, especially when that runs so counter to how the Indianapolis Colts offense has been run throughout the course of the year, where there is a little bit more of trying to push the ball down the field with Daniel Jones. And so it's hard to anticipate what you were going to get. I thought they anticipated it pretty well. All that being said, Nick Emanwari is already a star and maybe already on his way right now as it is to being a superstar. Devin Witherspoon's quietly climbed up to being the highest rated corner by PFF now, a guy that was there with that
I
tip.
think he is. I think he is number one.
Number one right now in PFF of any corners in the sport as far as how he's rated. His fit to the outside has been so true and pure. I'm so excited, Brendan, about the combination of these two. We don't know what the extra cornerback is going to be over there for the years to come with Will and Job here. Can you find another guy? And I think about that a little bit of it. You end up finding that other third cat over there to where there is no weak link to pick on in that secondary at that point. And what you're doing with up on the front to kind of pair those two things together. We talk about, the dominance this year, but the dominance in the future, because even the Ravens didn't have a guy like Witherspoon on the outside that they could put with Hamilton.
Yeah, Miami has a cornerback coming out this year, Keontae Scott. You familiar with him?
I haven't gotten to him yet. I've gotten through about 4 or 5 guys on my list so far, but not quite him yet.
Well, all I'm going to say is that he is an absolute demon against the run. He is the run defending corner in this class. 10 tackles for loss this season. He is just always just blowing into the backfield and attacking outside runs. There are definitely corners in this class that are much better in coverage. Don't get me wrong. And there are corners that are better overall, but just want to go ahead and kind of put a little circle on that one. Because if you got that guy, Witherspoon and Emanwari, you can play dime the whole game, and they still won't be able to run the ball on you.
There's a lot early look at the cornerbacks in this draft is I don't know if there's the star power to blue chip, but I'm seeing a lot that seem to have sort of that maybe late first to second, early third kind of area where there's going to be a very heavy cluster, a variety of guys like you mentioned in that spot in this draft. So that suited need might fit up nicely to Seattle for where they're picking as well in the draft. Some good players.
Mm-hmm. Right. But anyway, like you said, the defense did play well. I think there was a little bit of frustration at some points. It felt like we were kind of playing them a little bit more generically than I thought. I thought you would have been kind of daring Rivers to throw the ball more than 15 yards down the field. I don't know how much of that there was, but the results are the results. Again, I do think you can make an argument the Colts were able to play the game they wanted to play, and they were able to kind of dictate the pace of that game, even if they weren't necessarily good, and that was frustrating. But I think it was like 215 total yards they had. It's hard to do that in the modern NFL with all these rule changes, holding a team to 215 yards. Especially, I want to say Shane Steichen's very good. Maybe he's not a great head coach, but he's a very good offensive mind. So that doesn't come around every day. So I'd say I'm pretty much in tune with you. I think there was some frustration in that game here and there, not being able to force a turnover on these Tim Tebow passes from Phillip Rivers was maddening. I when I saw the way his throws were coming out of his hand early in that game, I was like, we're going to get 8 interceptions. So there was a little bit of frustration, but they did what they needed to do, and there was a little bit of additional added English on that game that I think made life a little bit harder for this team. So
The English
I'm
you're
gonna,
talking about, of course, is the officiating, Brendan. I think we both looked at this as well in the same manner. Felt
yeah,
like to me maybe one of the
was not
worst
thrilled.
officiating games in a couple
Yeah,
years.
yeah, was not happy. Like everybody's bagging on Josh Jobe right now, which by the way, I think is actually very unwarranted. I think that he's actually played pretty well this year.
Mhm.
And people need to understand Devin Witherspoon might be the best corner in football, and Reek Woolen, like teams, it's gotten back to the point where teams are terrified to throw at him. If you're going to throw at somebody, it's going to be Job, right? Everybody else is terrifying to throw at. I know that Eman Ward gives up stuff sometimes, but he's so long, you really don't want to throw the ball at him because his ability to get his hands on the ball is like second to none just because of how long his arms are. So if you're going to pick on anybody, it's Job. He's just going to be the guy that gives up stuff sometimes. That doesn't make him a bad player. I'm not saying he had a particularly good game this week. I don't think he did, but that pass interference on Job really, really confusing to me. I still don't know where that came from. I still don't know what that was all about. That set me off. You had a couple others as well, like the no call on the JSN, illegal contact. You had a PI on Shaheed that didn't get called. I know we're just talking about the defense here, but overall, that was a very frustrating element of this game. And you could feel the desire to get Phillip Rivers a win in his first game back. Yeah, I'm sorry, you just could. And you can't tell me that wasn't a little bit of an element here.
It certainly felt like that to me. And when it's going to be called, look, I'm okay with officials if they're going to call it on days where there's officiating crews that are called tighter, call it looser. I got no problem with that. But you got to call it equal on both sides of the ball and how you're going to call it. And not only those specific moments you talk about that stand out, but it is also the fact that you're letting them just really get after our receivers and holding and tugging and pulling throughout the course of the routes in this football game. Our defensive linemen weren't having any holding calls at all. And those, they were getting their hands up around the neck, up around the shoulder, hugging them. It was just one where I think that it went way beyond the pale as far as letting them play. And it did make you start to feel as you came back along of like, dude, you guys trying to get Philip this dub? It does start to feel like that a little bit when it's that egregious. And again, I'm not one who's to complain about officials. I haven't done so probably in about a year or two on this one, but that's why this game stood out so much.
Right, right. And it even, even beyond that, you had the play right before the half with JSN where he's getting hit after the whistle in a pretty
Mm,
egregious way, and you don't even get a flag on that one. Now, I don't even really care about the flag on that play because that's putting our best player at risk. So
yeah.
that to me, that's more important than a flag. But still, what are we doing here? And that's a big
Yeah.
moment in that game. If we get that flag, the clock stops, we get 15 yards, maybe we get a touchdown on that drive instead of the long field goal right before the end of the half. But I don't know. It felt I was definitely I was feeling a way that I have not felt in a couple of years watching a
Yeah.
Seahawks game. I'll put it to you that way.
Same. I had that same kind of sneaking suspicion feeling that was kind of like, I don't know. Man. A couple of we got a couple of members who've jumped aboard here. Samuel Swanson, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Mickey Monster as well. Appreciate y'all for that. The Red Glove Man, Industry Worth. Some of these might be from my prior one actually, but thank you for all the new members of the channel. Please do keep an eye on your community post for the membership benefits there. David Pugh, thank you for the $10 donation. David, he says whether Cross plays or not, we needed to move the pocket for Sam anyways. Great play callers and quarterbacks find a way. Let's go get a win. Get him on the move. Find his yardage by passing or running. No excuses. Boy, I love where David's
Mhm.
coming from with this one. Brendan, don't you?
Yeah, so obviously, this is one of the big subplots going into this Rams game, the Charles Cross situation, and I to be clear, I'm not overly optimistic about Josh Jones being able to adequately replace Charles Cross. But I will say this: if you had to pick an offensive coordinator to work around a deficiency on the offensive line, especially in pass protection, Kubiak would probably be near the top with the way he's done so far this year. Uh, Sam Darnold, I think, is the second least sacked quarterback in the league that has played every game, second to
Mm,
only Bo Nix, and Bo Nix basically is playing a different sport when it comes to evading sacks. So it is something that you would expect this team to be able to work well to mitigate. I'm not sure if it'll be completely mitigated, but I do think that it is reasonable for this Seattle team to, at the very least, find ways to do things, even if Cross is not out there. Although I'm really hoping he's out there. It sure would be nice.
It would be nice. I think you're right. This is an offense that's got things situated in how it's structured to be able to overcome these kind of injuries and still find some effectiveness in moving the ball. I like his idea of getting some stuff on the move. This comes off the play action. I mean, play action rollouts all day long. I'd be trying to lean into those because Sam does them so well. I like as well including the running aspect, where Sam the last couple of weeks starting to maybe embrace a little bit more of the running, which I would like to see. He doesn't have to run for 40 yards a game, but just choose some of those selective moments to get that positive play rather than trying to fit that ball in late like he did a couple of weeks ago to Elijah Arroyo. Just go get a couple yards. Take the positive play, especially a game like this. Positive plays have got to be thought of as a really beautiful thing in this game. When negative plays have got to be the thing that we avoid. We've got to get into the third and makeables, because part of that as well is get out of those 3rd and 7s, get out of those 3rd and 8s, get out of those 3rd and 9s. Those situations, I was looking up the data last night, and we're one of the least effective teams in the NFL already walking in those situations. Rams are actually pretty good in 3rd and long. They still can find some first downs. We suck wind. We cannot do it in the least. So we've got to avoid it. And you do that by getting positive plays and making that a bit of the onus as you do walk into this. Love your thoughts on this, David. Thank you for the donation. I definitely would lean into that way and get the ball out of your hands quick. So a lot of play action, ball out of the hand quick. But a lot of the stuff that we didn't do in that first game, Brendan, we saw that first game, there's a lot of more of the deeper drops and trying to take the shots down the field. To me, it's use that Mac Jones blueprint that he supplied with the Niners. Quick passing attack, roll action, run game, intermix it all, and you should find some effectiveness against this defense, I think, even with Cross out.
Yeah, there is a formula here. We've seen it on display. This Rams team, obviously they're a great team. They might be the best team in football, but they haven't been a brick wall all season. They have given up points, they have given up yards, and I even go back to that first game a little bit where we played them in LA, and I think we did an okay job moving the ball. We just kicked too many field goals and had too many turnovers.
That was it. I think, and there's definitely some things maybe you can pull from that game. And again, especially the learning the lessons on what intercepted plays and how those went down and kind of how it all played out. A little bit of lack of commitment to running that ball in that game, I think, too, at times. But well said, David. No excuses, man. They're down Devontae Adams. I mean, we're down Charles Croft. They're down Devontae Adams. I think that's a pretty good equivalency there for tit for tat on that one. So
keep an eye on Kobe Turner as well. He may not play this week either.
Oh wow, that would be a big loss for them if he's out, because he's kind of a bit of the quiet engine at times that makes that defensive line roll. Like they've gotten Puna back into a one tech, and they've got Fisk, who does he's having a quiet year, but he's just the pass rusher. Turner's there to be kind of that Byron Murphy kind of role for their defense, where play some 3, play some one tech, asked to do a lot of the hard hat stuff in that defense, still flashes for you as a pass rusher. He's out. That's big, Brendan.
Yeah, so keep an eye on that. Definitely worth keeping monitoring. We'll get the injury report later today.
Amen. Feed Me, thank you for the $2 donation. Says the Job flag summed up the game for me. F the Zebras. Yeah, it was one of those moments which was the snapshot for me it was a volcano, Brendan. It was Mount St. Helens. It's like, and I was just going, oh, you guys aren't doing this today. Oh, don't you do this today. And then it got to that play with Job where ticky tack, you get way more egregious stuff happening on the other side of the ball with our receivers. And then you're going to call that one. And it's always, as I say with the key on those calls, Brendan, it's not only the call itself, which was horrible, it's the timing of the call. It's the automatic first down on a 3rd down that goes in addition to it. That one had me seeing red.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that sometimes makes you want to just turn off the game because you feel like exactly how it's going to end. Now, luckily, it didn't end this way for us on Sunday, but it's one of those moments that does kind of make you feel like, why am I even watching this?
Yeah, the NFL sometimes got to be careful with some of this stuff because it just gets that place where you're like, you feel like you're like, you guys are lying to me on this a little bit. What's going on here? Slobby1, thank you for the $2 donation. If we lose Clint Kubiak, how would y'all feel about Dable?
I do like some of the stuff Dable has done. I would say though, when you look at number one, there's a couple things here. Number one, Josh Allen the guy who he supposedly developed only got better after. Oh,
Sorry,
that
my bad.
was.
I
Did
had
something
something
break?
drop. Somebody tried to give me a call. They're right there, so
Okay,
we're
nothing
good.
broke over there. You good?
We're good.
Oh, excuse me. So you have Josh Allen, who presumably was the guy that Brian Daboll developed, only getting better after Daboll left. It wasn't like Josh Allen fell off a cliff as soon as Daboll got out of town or anything like that. Number two, you have the Daniel Jones thing where Brian Daboll was able to get a quality season out of Daniel Jones his first year in New York. And that was another thing that made people think, oh, this guy's a guru. Well, I mean, Daniel Jones proceeded to completely fall off a cliff after that year. And then he went to Indy and was in the MVP race for the first 2 months of the year. So I feel like the shine is off the apple a little bit because honestly, you look at the good year Daniel Jones had in New York, and basically all he did was not throw the ball hardly at all. So I think you look at that and you're like, well, there's some real holes in that resume now that didn't exist a few years ago. And maybe beyond that, and I think this is something that can be mitigated for an offensive coordinator, but I think that there's a personality issue there, and I go back to Wink Martindale because Wink Martindale left New York in a huff a couple years ago, and there's a connection between Mike McDonald and Wink Martindale. Remember those guys coached together, right? In
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore for a while. So I imagine that if Mike called up Wink Martindale and asked him, "What do you think of Brian Daboll?" I knowing the kind of personality Wink Martindale has, I think I know exactly what he would say. And Mike McDonald would leave that conversation thinking, I'm never going to hire that guy ever. So probably not.
Yeah, it's a good point there. Brian Dable runs really like the Patriot offense at its core with a lot of the RPO kind of concepts built within there. He wants really like what Daniel was, where guy can be capable as a passer, but he's going to use his legs in his way. That's at least the offense he's put together. Josh Allen was running that stuff as well. That's not the offense I want to run with Sam Darnold. And I don't really like the thought of going for a third straight year to a completely different offense from what we've just done the last year. I mean, there's some tenets within Dable's scheme, like outside zone runs are kind of the bread and butter. So there's a little bit of that, which would be a like for like kind of transition there. But you're going to be changing so many holy concepts over and anew. And again, Sam's not there to run the read option stuff. That's not his game. That's not the game that I want Sam running. He barely wants to run as it is, much less have it be a centerpiece of the offense a bit. So I like Dable, but just not a fit here. I want to go and get a West Coast style offensive coordinator, a like for like guy, hopefully a Shanahan kind of acolyte, even at that, to get really, really on it so that these guys aren't relearning a whole new playbook once again, and we're basically having to hit the reset button on the offense.
I think that
Yeah,
captures it all pretty well. And again, I think that personality thing is going to weigh heavy because, again, Wink and McDonald go back a little bit.
yeah. I think your volume went down just a little bit on your mic, by the way.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, it's doing it again, man. StreamYard
I
will
know.
not be denied. StreamYard is like the referees on Sunday in that Seahawks Colts game. They wanted to get Phillip Rivers their win, and StreamYard wants to mess with my volume settings no matter what I do.
They're gonna find a way. They're gonna find a way. Let me get this is a fiver on your side from Peter Go Hawks, and he says send Mills down, put Velus Jones on the 53. His numbers are pretty awesome for a small sample size. 8+ yards per run with an 11 per yards reception. Couldn't hurt. I'm gonna have you just touch on this really, really quick while I use it.
Mm-hmm.
One sec.
Well, if you're talking about Velus Jones in Seattle so far, to my knowledge, all he has is 3 carries. And he did look pretty good on those 3 carries, but they were garbage time carries, the purest of garbage time carries. And if you're talking about like what he did in college or maybe at a previous team that he was on, I do think that his skill set fits pretty decently in the Kubiak offense, but there's a reason why that guy can't find any way to latch onto an NFL team. So, I mean, even if you called him up, he would barely play. And you could say the same thing about Riley Mills as well. But the thing is, I think Mills is actually probably going to add a little bit more to this team. This Seahawks team, and I know some people are a little bit down on Walker and or Charbonnet right now.
Sorry about that, Brody.
Oh, all right. Yeah, okay, so Where does do you know where the 8 yards per run, 11 yards per catch comes from Valus? Because I know he hasn't caught any passes here. He's run with the ball 3 times in garbage time against, I think it was Minnesota, and that's it.
Yeah, it's and again with this, Peter, I totally get where you're coming from with it. Is we're trying to look for answers here in the running game. But I think as well, this is where kind of why I was asking Brendan a little bit earlier on this as well, is sort of like what's the, what is really the core issue here in the running game? Is it a lack of the running backs being dynamic enough, or is it a matter of you're not doing something else that's going on? Lack of commitment, bad run blocking, and I think me and Brendan just kind of see this more as an offensive line blocking issue beyond being a running back. To give you, for instance, for this, and I know again it's PFF, but I think that this just kind of does serve my point a bit. PFF right now has both of your 2 running backs as 2 top 10 rated running backs in this sport.
Mm-hmm.
So think about this from the standpoint, you don't have to put a lot of onus in the grades of PFF or put a lot of weight into it, but just think about this. They're looking at your system, they're looking, and they don't have a dog in this fight. And they're looking at your 2 running backs, and they've got Kenneth Walker's the second highest graded running back in the sport. They've got like Charbonnet at 9 or 10. So they're telling you exactly the thing that me and Brendan are saying right back on this, saying that the running backs are actually fine. And I know Walker gets beat all the hell with, he's hesitant. He's not going through the line. And I keep saying this, and it doesn't want to resonate with all those people that talk about the hesitancy of Walker. And because they see Charbonnet and he's not willing to, he doesn't do that hesitancy. He just gets downhill. Well, partly that's because Charbonnet can't do the things Walker can do. That's why you don't see Charbonnet hesitating. But the fact that he's hesitating in the first place does not come back to the fact that it's just a lack of vision from Walker. It comes down to the fact that your run blocking is awful. It is awful. They are losing blocks. Multiple guys on one play lose their blocks to the line of scrimmage for guys to get in the backfield. And this is going to be a thing that adds up over time on running backs. You get a guy that naturally dances a little bit like Walker. He's going to really start dancing when there's that much penetration. He's going to really start dancing when it's been 3 effing years of this stuff, Brendan. 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get holes for these guys. And I get the drawback to the running backs a little bit, but it's really comes down to just like, we cannot seem to put the line together that can run block up front to create anything close to a hole for these guys. I looked over at Jonathan Taylor, a guy that averaged, what was he, barely under 4 yards a carry or something, but the holes like that
3.7, I think.
3.7. If you couldn't look at that and see the difference in the holes, and I'm not speaking to you, of course, Peter, but I'm just speaking in general that to the folks out there, there was such a difference in the holes that they were creating up front for the Colts for Taylor to just give him some initial success on those runs. We don't give anything close to that for our running backs. It is really bad how much we run block. And it stood out again, looking at the all-22 tape again from this past Sunday. I see it every single week. It just makes it hard for me to come back to the running backs on that side. With Riley Mills, still a little bit of a head scratcher for me on this one, Brendan. I guess he must be ripping it up in practice, because this was one that seemed to me like you just let him sit. You've got Jaron Reed coming back. Peely's found at least a little bit of a rotation here. But they seem to be really intent and set on getting this guy out there and really feel good about his upside, I guess. But I'm kind of like Peter on this, where I'm sort of like, just feels like as you're on, it's kind of a weird time to bring a guy out there to try to have him come up to speed as you're trying to go down the home stretch run to make a championship run.
Well, I think what happened was that there was a hope and maybe even an expectation that we would blow Indy out. And if we get into a blowout and Indy's forced to throw the ball, then you get Riley Mills out there, and now the stakes are lower, and Riley Mills gets to just rush the passer. Because with the way that game played out, and I even wrote, and by the way, can I go ahead and make my plug real quick?
Yeah.
I'm writing 2 articles a day for Seahawks on SI going forward. So if that's something that sounds fun to you, check me out. Seahawks on SI, part of the On SI network. So again, 2 articles a day. My first article, which went live yesterday, was about Riley Mills's debut, just talking about the last calendar year that he's gone through with the torn ACL and going through the draft, not being able to work out and all that. But that is a terrible matchup for him, because you've got a Colts team that wants to just run the ball, and they love those A gaps and B gaps, right? Jonathan Taylor lives in A gap and B gap. That's like the worst case scenario for a guy like Riley Mills, who is not very good against the run. He's a pass rusher. So much so he was actually an edge rusher a couple years ago. Remember, he had to gain weight to move to the interior. And he is such a uniquely physically put together guy, where he's very tall and very lightweight. that those A gap and B gap runs, he's just going to get smashed out of the play every time. And he did. To my eye, he was on the field for 7 snaps. I feel like every time he was on the field, Indy targeted him with an A gap or a B gap run, and he got demolished out of the play. So you get him out on the field in better situations, like passing downs. I think you're going to get a little bit more out of him because I do think he's legitimately a good pass rusher. I did think we were going to just basically redshirt him this year. I do agree with you on that. But we've already passed the point where he'll get an accrued season. He will not get an accrued season because he can only play in 4 games. You need 6. I looked this up. So we're not worried about that element anymore. Yeah, we did make it. And I think there's a little bit of a human element here where if you have a player that you believe can help you and you're trying to make this Super Bowl push and you're trying to get these players to like you, you don't want to hold them out just to like get an extra year of club control anyway. Like, it kind of reminds me with the Mariners a few years ago where they called up Julio Rodriguez a little bit earlier than people thought because they're like, oh, you're blowing your years of club control. Why are you doing that? You should just let him stay down for another 2 months and you'd get another year of club control. But the pushback on that was like, well, do you really want to like introduce one of your future stud players into you treating this sport like it's just a complete business and they don't even see you as a human? So maybe there's a little bit of that going on there too. I don't know what Riley Mills is going to do the rest of the year, but I do think that he is a good pass rusher. And if we actually get him on the field in pass down situations, you will see more out of him than you do out of a guy like Velus Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair. It's you. Who's he taking the snaps for? Is it Leonard Williams? Is it Byron Murphy? Is it Jaron Reed? Is he going to give you better reps than those guys give you as a pass rusher? I mean, the other thing too with this on the whole thing with the Mariner deal was part of that club control thing was you playing, and remember it was also the executive came out and said, we're going to try to keep the club control in this before they did that with Julio. So they had to do some damage control with what he had said. But that's also a little bit different where it's about with baseball, there's this game played of like stretching these guys out so very long to then pay them. Where is with this, you inherited a guy that was kind of not broken goods, but was going to take a very long period of time to come back from this major injury. You had to pay the price of not getting any of that play throughout a lot of the course of this season, which I think kind of earns you the right at that point to say, hey, we get another year of club control on this one. And that's a fair enough from one for us to ask. And while I understand that you want to do right by the player, it's also what's best for the team, not what's best for the player. That's what wins out at the end of the day. And this is one to me that on just 2 different levels, I wonder about with that. It's good to hear that they're going to maintain the club control year. So that's kind of the null and void part of this, but it's just about having the best players out there getting the most reps. And I'm going to trust in the coaching staff on this one. They've obviously seen something with him in practice throughout this year to make them feel like that pass rush you're talking about is going to come alive. But it did this past week. He looked like kind of a green rookie out there, and we're down to the home stretch the last 3 games here. You know, we don't have a, some New Orleans Saints home game left on the schedule here for him to kind of figure that stuff out a little bit. And so, I don't want to go too far with this experiment, I guess, Brendan, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe it's the Mike Morris snaps. That might be a little piece of it here. I don't think they're enamored with Mike Morris at this point. Maybe it's him. I know it's only a few snaps a game. And to their credit, in that second half, they basically pulled the plug on Mills, to my knowledge. I think he played 1 snap in the second half, maybe. So, they learned. But I don't think it's a big deal. I think he can help this team more than Velus Jones. I'll put it to you that way. But you're right. There are not a lot of snaps to go around.
Yeah. We'll see. And again, the coaches might be seeing something in practice, lighting the world on fire that makes it make all the much sense here in a couple of games when he's out there. And certainly a fresh body. Nice to have that, Brendan. If he can give you something to get another body on that rotation, would be great.
We like fresh bodies around here.
We love fresh bodies around here. Thank you again, though, Peter, over on Brendan's side for that. Don't know. Dublin Seahawker, also on Brendan's side. Thank you for the $10 donation. How do we feel about getting K9 and Sharps more involved in the passing game? Also, would you extend K9 or bring in a veteran to support Sharps, Kenny, and Holani next season? Thanks, and love the Hawk streams.
I feel like it's not a big element of this offense to throw the ball to backs. I kind of feel like that's at play. And the thing I keep saying is that as of right now in this offense, there's only so many passes that are going to get thrown. Even if we expand out a little bit, would you rather throw passes to K9 and Charbonnet, or would you rather throw the ball to Rashid Shaheed? I understand that it's not completely in a vacuum, but I do kind of feel like I'd rather go with the Shaheed part, especially because this offensive line, like you want to talk about their issues with run blocking. I think they also have issues in blocking for screens too. There's just not a lot of reliability there. It doesn't feel like you can count on them. So I don't know about that. And let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the extension part because that's a little bit of a different conversation. But what do you think about the pass game thing?
I find myself a little bit on a different territory than you might be on this one. And it comes back to the initial point we talked about the game plan to come out here in this game. You're not running the ball effectively. You've tried to keep running the ball more than you're passing in a lot of these games. You're trying to stay on it on early downs to run the ball. I'm advocating for trying to throw a little bit more, but not for throwing how you've thrown through a lot of this year. The yard per attempt average with Darnold, sometimes a little bit of, I wouldn't call it a obsession, but a very strong predilection towards leaning tries to try to push the ball down the field on intermediate and longer routes. There's not been as much commitment throughout the early part of the schedule this year of really getting the ball to the backside of the backfield. I think that's one of the places that he kind of started to make a little bit of a transition to off the back of that Rams game, was understanding you got to work a little bit more of that. And I'll tell you this, if I can't get my running backs to get things going traditionally by handing it off to them, one of the ways to get around that is throw a ball out into the flat. Give him what's looked at as basically a run play, but you're just trying to get him out the ball into space to let him work a little bit because you know the congestion you're dealing with the run game and how much penetration you're allowing. So I think it's a way to allow you to both get the ball into your running back's hands and manufacture some touches for him, get the ball out of Sam's hands quick because those flat routes, you have the guy drop back, you have him push his eyes down the field so he can get the defenders to drop to depth. Then he swings it right out. It's a bang, bang kind of play, gives him an automatic kind of functionality. You give him an easy throw out in space to get him into kind of rhythm at times too with that. I think there's a lot of benefit here from this, not to mention they're pretty capable guys out of the backfield. Remember that Rams game at the end, what he started doing at the end of that game, Brendan? Started working it to Kenneth Walker. Started throwing Kenneth Walker out of the backfield a little bit. So I think Dublin's completely on it in this one in the respect of that this is absolutely something I'd lean against this Rams team. They're going to drop to depth. They're going to drop 7 guys into coverage, Brendan. They're going to squeeze down those passing windows to those guys you want to throw down the field because of those defenders down there. You either run against the light box or you throw short and let your guys work up the field. That's the counter to that. You don't go into the teeth of that. That's one of the reasons why Darnold threw the 4 interceptions in the first matchup.
Well, one thing I will say, kind of going to what you're talking about, that might play in here as well. Both K9 and Charbonnet have been abortions at pass protection this year. They have been so bad, like completely unplayable in that regard. So maybe if you put them in the passing game as route runners a little bit, you could try to get something better out of them. Maybe there's a little bit of that too. I don't know. I do think that that's an interesting idea, at least, because I cannot believe how much Charbonnet's regressed as a pass protector. It's been awful.
Yeah, and Walker's heart doesn't always seem to be completely in it in that way either, to your point on the other side. So I think you're on it without that part of it, Dublin. As far as extending K9, I'm open to it myself. I don't know if I've got a hard line opinion on this and that this is what has to happen. It's a must. It's necessity. I just kind of think it's something that, in general terms, if you can find kind of the Chuba Hubbard middle of the road extension to give Walker, that'd be great. I think he's probably going to get a lot of money on the market. I think he's probably going to end up pricing himself out of the market here unless you franchise him. Probably the bottom line on that one.
Yeah, I hate to sit on the fence because it's very sharp up there. You sit on the fence, it hurts. You don't want to be sitting on that fence, right?
It's got spikes up there. It's got those spike tops.
Yeah, they got barbed wire. It's not good. You don't want to be sitting on the fence, but I'm kind of indifferent here. I can see the argument for doing it. I can see the argument against doing it. I do think this is a decent draft for running back. So if you need a running back in the draft, it's doable. There are also some intriguing options in free agency that if you don't keep K9, you can sign in for probably a little less money and certainly probably less years. And also the fact that there are so many running backs in the free agency pool might depress the value of the ones that are out there a little bit. So maybe not just K9, but any running back you get will be a little bit less than you normally would have gotten. Like I'm looking at the list right now. You've got Travis Etienne, who was having a pretty nice year in Jacksonville. He was setting the world on fire earlier. I know he's tailed off a little bit, but he's very good. Javonte Williams has been great this year for Dallas. He's been all the way back from that injury. Rico Dowdle's doing great stuff for Carolina. You got Brees Hall, who I remember going back to our draft coverage in 2022, we both thought Brees Hall was going to be a better player than Ken Walker. I think we would have been right if not for the ACL tear that he had or the Achilles tear. And he looks like he's fighting his way back from that. You've got maybe even somebody like, I'm not super enamored with this one, but J.K. Dobbins is a free agent. There are guys out there that you can go get that will probably be a little less than K9 that you might prefer to have. So there are options out there, and I'm not going to turn my nose up at any route at this point in time.
So kind of open-minded. We're both are Dublin on this one. I don't think we've got a strong, I know we're supposed to have strong opinions on this one, but I think we're just kind of open-minded on this one. And really the priority is going to come back to, I think, for both our perspective of reinforcing this offensive line as a first priority. And we'll get to the running back situation after that, as far as how that goes. Eli Soap, thank you for the $5 donation, Eli. Darnold's confidence has been slipping these couple of games when defenses have brought the pressure and shut down his first read. Who needs to get open?
I have, it does feel a little bit different than earlier this year. Like I go back to earlier this year, Darnold was letting it fly without fear, just trusting JSN was going to go up and get it. And JSN did go up and get it over and over and over again. Hasn't been quite the same lately. I don't know who exactly needs to get open. I can't pinpoint it down to one player or one thing though. I do think that one, and this is me being kind of hopeful that this is what it is. These last few games, weaker opponents, teams that really didn't have much of an offense. I do think that there may have been some desire on the part of the Seahawks to go, look, we're going to win this game. We feel very confident we're going to win this game. Just play low variance. Do not turn it over, and we'll be fine. I wonder if maybe part of it is just they kind of pulled back, went into second or third gear, and figured we're still going to win. We're still going to win. Style points don't count in the NFL. Let's just not get into some high variance offense where we could turn it over a bunch because you were chucking it around the field and we blow a game that we have no business blowing. Maybe that's part of it.
It's a possibility there, Brendan. I think that there's a little bit of this where we want the perfect line to be walked at times by players. And what I mean by that is that there's been a change, I think, from Darnold coming out of the Rams game, and one that we wanted to see, which is that you got a great defense. You got a great special teams. You got a great team. It's not on you, man. You don't have to put the hero cape on your back and make this happen. Now, I think that there's a give and take with that, Brendan. I think that when you get to see him playing loose like he did through the early part of the year, and he's letting it rip and he's throwing it all over the place. Look, you got the interceptions with that too, didn't you? Almost throughout a lot of those games. You got that price of doing business when he was letting it rip in there. Same thing to the other side. If you're going to go to Darnold and you're going to say, you got to eliminate these interceptions, you got to play a clean game. You've got too good of a team to allow this to upend us. Well, now when you go and you tell the quarterback that, guess what? They're going to play it a little safer. They're going to be a little bit more tentative in their approach. They're going to be a little bit more sure on some of the throws that they're making because of that. What has he got? One interception since that Rams game, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yes, you're right.
It's one where from my perspective on this is, you kind of can't have it both ways to me on this one. You can't say, I want you to eliminate all the interceptions and play safe and play the defense and play the special teams and play under control and stop with this stuff. And then at the same point in time say, yeah, and let it rip. Yeah. It's like, to me, that's kind of a fan want thing there. Versus which way do you want to go with this? You want to trust in the defense, trust the special teams and have him play within himself, or let him play loose and free? And to me, I'm going to lean more into, if I got to make a choice to one or the other, and I don't get to just split the difference, I'm going to say play a little bit more under control, play a little bit more of a cleaner game. Kubiak can come up with a better game plan. I mean, to me, Eli, this is really where it comes down to confidence. How about a better game plan than what we've seen from you? I've not been impressed since the Rams game with Kubiak's game plan, point blank. You found some explosive things, but to me, nobody really talks about, has Kubiak regressed? Nobody's really talked about what's happened with the play calling Kubiak. It kind of goes to Darnold. It'll go to the run game. Doesn't come back as much to Kubiak on what are these game plans, man? You play against the Minnesota Vikings and you're not prepared for the blitz. You sleepwalk through the first half of the Falcons game with a game plan that I don't know what you're trying to really accomplish. Against the Rams, you're trying to push the ball down the field when the blueprint in place was short passing attack and lean on the run game. You forgot about the running game in that one. This comes back more to me on that stuff. And if you supply Sam some more easier throws, more of the play action, more of the rollouts, more of some of the simplistic ways in which you want to have things kind of roll out offensively, and that'll be enough. you'll be enough consistent wise and scoring points wise to get the job done. That's where I backtrack this to just myself.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. There was definitely a sense of frustration. I'm doing the watch along stream. I'm in the stream with people, and we're talking about the game. If you get into the nitty gritty of most offensive game plans, I feel like you're going to end up finding things that don't work very well. And maybe there is a little bit some element of being a little bit gun shy after that Rams game because it went so badly and it cost us a game that we absolutely should have won given the way everything else in that game went. So there's like an element to it. I remember I used to be friends with he wasn't a professional bowler, but he bowled like 3 times a week. He was a very good bowler. And he talked about how sometimes when you go through your swing on releasing the bowling ball, you hit your knee with the side with the ball. You hit the side of your knee with the ball. And it's really hard to go back to your normal motion and not just swing your arm out really far to try to avoid hitting your knee. And you're going to do that dozens of times until you kind of train yourself to trust your normal motion again. So maybe there's some element of that here, that kind of thing.
Yeah. As with all things, I guess it's a little complicated, I suppose, in how it rolls. But yeah, I just think get a little bit more simplified the passing structure, play action rollouts, throws out to the running back as Dublin was talking about out in space. Just kind of working some of that's going to help out. I think Sam to a great degree. Banker Elprez, thank you for the $2 donation. Says if Darnold throws 4 interceptions again, what will you again? You will do what?
I think it's kind of like a fill in the blank thing. You will do blank.
Oh, well, I mean, it just depends on how the interceptions happen. Is it 4 tip passes that get picked off? Is it him throwing it just straight into guys in a bad read? Context in these situations always matters. Banker, I'm never a guy that likes to drive towards simplicity when it comes to outlooks on any situation. So it's context.
That'd be a very fun week on YouTube for us, wouldn't it? A week and a half, actually. Yeah. If that happens, I'm not looking forward to that week and a half.
No.
Oh boy.
No,
so
it certainly isn't going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the discussions aren't going to be fun, Banker, it's not going to feel there's not going to be any confidence going into this playoffs or any of that for sure. I don't expect that we're going to see that again though. And Darnold's cleaned a lot of things up. Just talked about the 1 interception since that game. He's cleaned a lot of things up, So it's kind of weird. Like, people will have this Darnold playing loose and free and he's out of control. It's like he's having almost the exact same season of Drake May statistically all the way down the line. Yet the 2 narratives between those 2 players right now that exists out there is pretty wild to see, especially with a guy in May who's, what has he been able to face, like the 6th easiest schedule in like NFL history or something like that, by and large, throughout most of this year.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Food for thought.
It's up there. And, in many ways, Sam Darnold, like Geno Smith before him, he's a victim of his own success, right? He played at such a high level at the start that when he inevitably slipped a little bit and fell off a little bit because it's impossible to play that well for that long a period of time, everybody's like, well, where's my MVP caliber quarterback? Where'd he go? And the reality is that he was never going to maintain an MVP caliber level of play because this offense doesn't really enable it. And he's not that kind of player. And it's fine. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I see it the same way. Samuel Carlson, thank you for the $5 donation. I don't like Clint Kubiak as an offensive coordinator. His offenses always die at the end of the seasons. He just feels so unprepared every week and makes weird calls.
Well, his offenses always die at the end of seasons. I would need to see some data on that because last year he was the Saints OC and they died early in the season because everybody got hurt. That had nothing to do with Kubiak. He was the offensive coordinator when the Broncos had Russell Wilson for a little bit, but that offense was dead when he got it and it stayed dead when he had it. So not really anything to say there. And I think he had 1 year as the Vikings OC other than that. So I don't know about his offense is always dying at the end of seasons. That kind of feels like a narrative that can't really be backed up with anything in the data. I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm not considering here.
I think you're on it. I think you're on it with the respect of the sample size part of this is the part that's going to make that a bit tough. I'd have to look into what he did with the Vikings when he was there and how that whole situation went with them. I'm just double checking on a couple things here before I speak out of turn. So prior 2 years, I guess, Samuel, for my bottom line on this right now, he's got them performing at a top 7 rate. as far as, well, I mean, technically right now you've got your, I think, sixth in points, offensively speaking, right now, approximately. Fifth in points.
Yeah,
so you're fifth in points. You had the prior two seasons in 23 and 24, you averaged 21 points a game offensively. This year, you're averaging almost 29 points a game. He's almost got you up around 30 points a game. Last year, the Saints offense, yeah, I guess it did technically, Samuel, it did kind of die out the end of this last season, but that happened for a reason. That wasn't as much Kubiak being weird with the play calls or unprepared. It was because his offense got decimated with injuries. Nobody was healthy at the end of the year. No, literally nobody, from starting quarterback on down to receiving core for the most part. Offensive line was toast. I do agree with you on the weird play calls, the weird game plans that have come out, and I think that it's been befuddling to me, and it frustrates me. But I do think at the end of the day that his bottom line on this season and what he's provided to you, and giving you an actual competent offensive coordinator versus, to me, what we've had here through years, which has been average at best to well below average. I think he gives you definitely an uptick. Not saying he's the best in the sport, but he's definitely a big improvement over what you had, and a guy that I think you can win a Super Bowl with, a guy like Kubiak as an offensive coordinator. Like he's well. We got to give him some room for this too. I know he's being talked about as a head coach, but he as well is, what is he, Brendan? He's in his fourth year as an offensive coordinator here. He's
right.
Also a guy that we talk about letting young players grow and letting them learn and letting them kind of continue to get better and better. I think we got to probably apply the same thing for a guy in his 30s who's only done this for now his fourth year as an OC, to give him a little bit of that room to continue to get better at his job a little bit.
Yeah, and this is really not a stacked offense talent-wise, I don't think. JSN's great, but other than that, it's like, okay, we got decent tight ends. I don't think our tight end room is something that everyone in the league would jump to have, right? We have, I'd say our running back room is probably one of the better ones in the league. Probably top 5, top 6 at least. But the offensive line, it's good, but it's definitely nowhere near what Philadelphia has, or Buffalo, or some of these other teams that are out there. The receivers for most of the year, other than JSN, are just kind of guys. Like his number 2 was Cooper Kupp, and love and respect to Cooper Kupp, but he's not what he used to be at all. It's not some super stacked offense. He's not Kevin Patullo out there barely getting by with this ultra expensive, all pro laden offense here. Like that's not what's going on here.
I agree with you. I don't think that he's got an offense that's stacked. And let's not forget, with this offense, you've got about $60 million of dead money on your cap this year, all to the offensive side of the ball. And they're taking the price for that. They're bearing the brunt of that dead money, meaning that the assets you put to the defensive side weren't cut back so you could accommodate the dead money hits for Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, and so on and so forth. Fant in there as well. So that's a significant portion of the cap that's pulled off of your offense that you can't utilize, that's not being utilized by Kubiak, that he's got to work his way around through. And back to it, well, as I said, just back to this other point, the prior 2 years to this year, 21 points a game, by and large, the same personnel that you have on the football field right now was the same personnel for the most part. A Zabel, a Rashid Shaheed, okay. But aside from that, everything's kind of like for like as far as the same personnel goes there, and yet vastly underperformed on a point per game basis for where you're at right now. And to me, that's a little bit of the bottom line with Kubiak. Not that it's perfect, not that there isn't room for growth, Samuel. Absolutely there is. But I think with being a young coordinator, I think that can come along with time, as long as he doesn't get, of course, a head coaching job this offseason, Brendan.
Yeah, and one thing I found is that if you're a fan of a team and you watch every game they play and you're watching every play, it is impossible to not overly criticize your coaching staff, I think, because everyone does it. Like, and I understand that the Chiefs are not a good team this year, but the things I've seen Chiefs fans say about Andy Reid over the last couple months is completely ridiculous and out of pocket. And I look at things like that. I remember like 15 years ago, I was hanging out on San Antonio Spurs message boards. All they did was complain about how bad Greg Popovich was. All they did. I'm not kidding. I swear all they did was say, this guy's a terrible coach. I hate him. Fire him. This is one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in NBA history, by the way. It's crazy, but if you watch every single play and every single moment of your team, you're going to see stuff you don't like. You just are. And either you can choose to make a big deal out of it, or you can choose to take it in stride and accept that every coach is doing these things sometimes.
Yeah, it's never going to be perfect. Your point, never perfect. Just look at the the final results and all. Don't pick out 1 point, but look at all the final results on there. And yeah, it's funny with those teams that have had so much success that jump on that garbage thing. They get touchy about that. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, has the fullback plan with Oots not worked out?
I don't think he's been very good. I will say he is kind of sort of changing positions this year. He was a hybrid tight end fullback last year for Alabama, and he didn't play that much. So it's not shocking that there's a little bit of a learning curve here. But I don't think he's been, he's certainly not he's not having a Max Strong like impact on this offense. I'll put it to you that way for sure.
Yeah, I think you got to give him a little bit of time for an offseason to get used to this position with the transition he did make in that way. I think that's a good point by Brennan Dogzilla. I think as well, to your point, no, it hasn't worked with him. He's been one of the lower graded fullbacks in the sport. There's not a lot of fullbacks, but he's one of the lowest graded ones. Fits to the tape. And really where he's struggling is the place you needed him to be at least competent with. And that he's been a contributor to these run game struggles. He is not blocking guys in the hole well. He is not sustaining his blocks. His targeting systems and his blocking is a little bit off at times. And so it is what it is there. It hasn't, brought the pack they thought. Maybe it will next year on this one, but I think this year, yeah, he's just not giving you very much to this offense right now. Taker 610, thank you for the $5 donation. Has any team ever risen and then fallen as fast, as hard as the Washington Commanders have? Also, it's interesting to see Russ and Geno just crash out.
So the Commanders, they're like the second worst team in the league 2 years ago. They make the NFC title game last year. This year, they are currently on track to probably end up with a top eight pick at the minimum. Like right now, they are sitting at 8. And if they lose out, that's probably like a 6th or 5th overall pick. That's tough to beat, man.
Yeah. I think that Brennan touched on this, I think, a little bit on the sandwich between this one good year you had going to the conference championship last year, being that's an outlier. You can have seasons that you can you get the right spirit. You get a dynamic quarterback with Jane Daniels, who nobody knows how to really play, who's comes out there and is ready to hit the ground running with Kingsbury there. I thought that they made some decent moves this offseason, but they made the unholy sin, Brendan, of investing in an old defense. And when you invest in old defenses, you're going to get bad play. And this is the Holmgren rule that he learned back in the day as a general manager, and one that, quite frankly, Dan Quinn, as a defensive-minded head coach, should know better on. But that's what they built, was a defensive, old defense that they hoped could get by with it, a reinforced offensive line, which wasn't quite reinforced, and then Jane Daniels gets injured. I think that was really just a bit of an outlier last year. That's not a good roster. It's not a talented roster. It's not a roster, that's loaded to the hilt, ready to go. I think that he just kind of the Cinderella status, and he sort of tricked them a little bit, and that got them thinking that they were a little closer than they really are.
Greatest rise and fall ever, though, individually, is probably Timmy Smith, right? Former Redskins running back. Remember this one? He did rookie season, did basically nothing all year, has the most rushing yards any player's ever had in the Super Bowl, runs for 200 yards, wins Super Bowl MVP. Next year, does nothing again, and then basically retires. That's got to be the greatest, right? Rise and fall ever.
That's probably good. There's always remember the Peyton Hillis one? That's another good one.
Yeah. He got the Madden cover too out of that.
Got the Madden cover and then just dropped off a cliff.
David Boston. There was another good one.
In Boston one. Well, he had the juice. Once they made him go off the juice, it was, he couldn't. Russ and Geno, it's looking like it's going to be a tough end for both those guys, which is unfortunate. I don't want to see that. But yeah, in Geno's case, I think he's also shown you some things here this season as to why there maybe have been some concerns with him as a leader. And not that he's a bad leader per se, but is he a guy that when the chips are down, he's going to stand tall and hold the line? And, I don't know about that. I know about that this year with what I've seen with him.
Well, my question is, how malleable is Geno's contract? Are the Raiders just going to stick it out with him because they can't move it? Because I don't think it's super flexible. I do wonder if they just say, you know what, we're going to be terrible anyway. Let's just be terrible with the quarterback on the team.
You're right. They're in the pickle with him, and that there's not really a clean way to get out of that deal without eating a good amount of money. But it's 18 million before June 1st. Post June 1st, you can split that in half basically. So he's got He's got no bonus money available after this year other than the 18.5 million for the 2026 bonus that kicks in. So, I mean, we've seen plenty of other teams that have taken bigger hits to get a quarterback that they felt better about than the Raiders feel about, and release those quarterbacks. So, yeah, he's going to be released. They're going to eat that and they're going to call it a day.
It is a terrible year to need a new quarterback, though. There's not a lot going on out there.
It's really bad, man. And you're going to see a couple QBs in this draft, I think, get elevated because of this, as the class is just, it does look like Sellers is going back. So it gets even weaker because of that. Maybe next year, by the way, 2027 might be a really good year for quarterbacks. I'm not guessing it is, because I thought that was going to be that this way this year. And it's been just, avert your eyes.
Well, I mean, sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. Like 2024 was great, which we knew was going to happen. And then there was some slippage this year. Do you still believe in Arch Manning long term, by the way?
Not as much. No, I'm definitely a little bit in a questionable spot. He's turned it around. So as tough as the year started out, and look, you start out the game with Ohio State with your first game that, like, I mean, people start drawing, fine. And it's his first real start. You're the guy, dude. He needs another year in college. And this is why the extra year in college is so important for some of these guys versus trying to come out a year early. You get the chance for the development. I think the odd thing that we're seeing in football right now, and maybe you've got a good explanation for it in college football, I don't. I'm seeing it in a lot of guys here in this draft, for this upcoming draft already right now. And that is the guys that are not putting their best tape out in their final year. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks that this happened with, but I've got so many guys where I look at them just like, man, you sort of took a step back this year. Man, you kind of took a little bit of a half step back this year rather than that final step of progress forward I was anticipating or hoping you were going to take to really make you an illustrious prospect at that point.
Yeah.
Kind of strange.
Yeah. Maybe they feel like that 1 year where they really did well kind of already locked them in, and they don't need to go all out to secure it. So they're just trying to protect themselves. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of.
It is possible. Quick thank you. Let's get a shout out here to the sponsor of the show as we're rolling through time wise here, Brandon. I can already tell that this 2 hours is going to go quick.
Yep.
Want to thank out the sponsor of the show, which is going to be Sleeper. Sleeper is the #1 sports app running in the game today. Sleeper, when you use their code, you get 100% match on their discount, and that is 100% match up to $100 when you use either my code or Brendan's code. So that's either NEST, N-E-S-T, or SBN. $100 from me and Brendan to you, and you support both of our channels at the same point in time. There are, of course, terms and conditions that do apply. Please see their site for details, but consider this the #1 app in the game running right now. You can do so many different things upon the app, pair together still some fantasy going down, some weekly fantasy if that's what you do. If you're out of your league, go the over and under. As you can see here, that's what I'm looking to do on these picks. Went with today on this one, Jason Myers at 1.5 field goals over, as we seem to have a hard time down the red zone lately. I think Shaheed's going to get targeted a good amount again in this game at over 34.5 yards. Charbonnet over at 35.5 yards rushing, because I think you're going to run. I think you're going to run up in the A and the B gap in this game. Kyron Williams over 55.5 yards rushing from them. I think they're going to stay committed to running in this game. And then Puka Nacua, Brendan, he just gets 1 million targets every game. So I've got him over 94.5 yards. You like these picks?
You're going 5, Alex.
I'm going 5. I'm going 5. It's Thursday Night Football. It's championship opportunity. We got to get a championship ticket put on play, Brendan. Yeah. Can't go small in these tickets for this kind of game. You got to go hard.
I'm going for it. I'm down with it, man. It looks good to me.
Well, please use them today. And again, they've even got one more freebie on top of it. $20 free entry. Just create a login. They'll put $20 into your account right now. So $120 from the Sleeper app, from me and Brendan to you. Either use Nest or SBN and go out there and win yourself some money today. There are some limitations that do apply to this in the state of Washington, but this thing is supposed to open up anytime, I'm being told. So keep an eye on that. You can always use it in the casino if you have to, and get on their network. You can use the app in full over there on that one. Couple more donations here. You guys have been so kind as we are stacked up deep on the donos. Let's get rolling through these. Chop in it up sports. Thank you for the $5 donation, Chop. The Darnold interceptions are way overblown, especially when most of them are just cost of doing business turnovers.
Yeah, one thing that I have been hammering this year, and this goes back to even the last couple years, turnovers are not as big a deal as a lot of fans seem to think they are. Turnovers are not the reason why your team doesn't score points in most instances, and it's not a very good measure of who is good and who is bad in this league. It just isn't. Turnovers are often the cost of doing business when you want to have a good offense. It's very rare you have that quarterback that is so locked in, he is producing at an elite level without turnovers.
Agree with Brendan on this one. I don't have a lot to offer on that, Chop. I think that people get too caught up and obsessed with these things. And the 4 interception game sucks. Don't get me wrong there, but I think cost of doing business is the right way to put it. And that's just what it is. If you want to have an offense that's going to be effective, it's going to take some risks. It's going to take some risks. You're going to have some bad outcomes. It's just kind of the way it's going to grow. Can you limit down the bad outcomes to a degree? Can you not make them an issue? Yeah, I think we've done that this year. 11 interceptions isn't bad for where we stand this year, especially for how much we've had to lean on the passing attack, considering the rushing attack hasn't been tremendously very effective. Kind of a big part of that too with it a little bit. Well said though, Chop. Brent Yoendo, thank you for the $10 donation, Brent. Didn't expect a Super Bowl run before the season. How much do you think the parity of the league has caused Hawk fans to all of a sudden demand perfection from an offense versus not wanting to be hurt? O-line equals better.
I kind of feel like you're a victim of your own success. I know I said that earlier this show, but you start out at such a high place offensively where it's the most explosive offense in the NFL at the start of the season. And then that fades away eventually because it's very hard to sustain that. And people want it back. And they're like, it's not here. It's not back. Therefore, something must be really, really wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got a lot to add there on this, Brent, versus what you and Brendan have put on top of this. I think that it's as much as this is kind of the place that I find myself sitting as well, is that we're a year ahead of schedule. Nobody thought that we were going to get even to potentially the playoffs this year. Vegas has 7.5 wins. Quite frankly, in a lot of the interactions I had with my fellow Seahawks fans, and I have a lot of interactions on my chat, not a lot of people had a lot of faith that the season was going to go anywhere coming into it. Yet we find ourselves at 11 wins. And to your point, Brent, there is a lot of fans out there that sort of have this sort of complaining thing going on about this team. It's like we're ahead of schedule. We're kicking ass, taking names. We're building a complete team. You can see that this thing's coming together. And I think by and large, most Hawk fans are satisfied and happy with it. But there is the contingent out there that he is, kind of picking at this a little bit to a degree. And I can't really understand it myself because we've had to wait for many years to have this kind of team form in the way that they have. Strike, thank you for the $2 donation. If you could coordinate for Seattle, are you offense or defense?
I was always more of an offense guy when I played Madden. I was always a big Dick Vermeil guy. That was the kind of offense I wanted to run.
Yeah, I would be probably an offensive guy too there, Strike. In that I just think it's just a little bit more funner to go with that and do that stuff. You can get a little bit more varied with it. I wouldn't mind doing D either, but if I had to go to one or the other, I'd go with offense.
That'd and I don't want to take anything away from Mike. Mike's doing great. So
yeah,
I'll take the offensive spot.
I'll take Clint's job though. Clint, you sit down for a quarter or two. Let me show you how it's done here. Okay. Let me show you how it's done, big guy. Thano with a $5 donation on your side. Before the season, the Seahawks were seen as a middle of the pack team. Now they look elite. What led to this jump? And was it so hard to see? Why was it so hard to see?
Interesting question. I don't think anybody thought Darnold would be this good. And I say that even though the last few games have been not as good. I think that there was general consensus that he benefited tremendously from Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. So you're getting better quarterback play. I personally am very surprised at the sophomore leap that Byron Murphy has taken. I think he should make the All-Pro team. I thought maybe we could get there by year 4 or something. I did not think we were going to get there now. I think that's a big part of it. And I would kind of go back to those two things as like the big things that I think have made this team better than I expected.
Yeah, I think from my perspective on this, I can't remember where you were at, Brendan. I think you were kind of close, but I mean, Thano at the start of the year, I had us at 11 in wins. So
yes,
I did have this. Yeah, you had 11 as well. So, I mean, both me and Brendan in certain ways had the success of the season coming along. A big driver of this success we have to acknowledge has to be the fact that you had the easier schedule. I mean, this is also a big part of why the Rams, the Niners are also sitting kind of near where our schedule's at, is they also got the benefit of those easier schedules by just who we're playing in which divisions this year. That's been a big part that's helped out. I think Brendan's point about some of the young players, Byron Murphy, Nicky Manwari bursting on the scene in the way he has. Some of these have been very nice as far as adjustments, getting an upper end offensive coordinator versus having a lower end offensive coordinator and what that can do for you. I think there's a lot of contributing factors for why you're not middle of the pack. There's another part of this that you've been building the base of this. Like it started 3 years ago, coming to the fruition of this now with these young players growing and getting better and getting into their physical prime. probably not a surprise as much because that is occurring in addition to that. So I throw it kind of all into the bag here, Thano, and all of it's a bit of an equal contributing factor here a bit. Mike McDonald being the head coach he is and how good he is too, in addition to that. And it all kind of is coming together. But it's not by happenstance or luck. Unlike we're talking about the Commanders, Brendan, that was a happenstance luck thing a little bit from my perspective. This is more of a, you've tangibly built this, you've smartly built this, and in a lot of ways, you kind of slowly built this for this sort of quote unquote now immediate success of this season.
Yeah, and also the thing with Washington, like they should have been one and done, right? Tampa Bay had that game, and then Baker fumbled doing the zone read, and then they were able to win because of that. Like, I'm sorry, that one felt a little bit like divine providence.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way with it. They just got over their skis a little bit. That's what I always say too. Get in the playoffs, anything can happen. They are the exact representation of that, where it's just like, look, get hot at the right time of year, have a couple breaks, breaking your right ways. It's just a couple games at that point. Funky things can happen in a select couple games at the end of a season. Just get in there is sometimes why we say that's so very important there. Great question though, Thano.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie with a $2 dono on your side. He asks, how about Brandon Ayuk next season?
That whole thing is so weird to me. He was so good that one year, and I can't believe we're here right now. Like so quickly. I can't believe that San Fran wouldn't work a little bit harder to make it right with him, because he was so good just a couple of years ago. But I don't know if I need to go there. We've got enough receivers. We don't throw the ball enough right now. Even if we do start throwing the ball a little bit more, I don't think we need an Ayuk, really. I don't think he adds a ton that we aren't going to get out of what we already have.
I'm in the same place as Brendan on this, Freddie. I mean, the real problem here becomes the contract with JSN, because he's going to probably command $42-43 million per year. And so how much more can you afford to spend to the rest of the receiving core? I don't even know what Ayuk's going to command at this point now, almost 2 years removed from having last played, especially with, like you say, the issues that were going on there with the Niners. You have Kupp coming back at $18.5 million as the cap cost next year for him. Probably have to decide with that. The team probably wants to more lean towards a Shaheed if they're going to bring a guy back into tow. And so that's probably more of the guy that would be likely the guy that they would target to bring in here. So just not quite a fit there. I think Ayuk ends up in Washington back with his former college teamate, Jaden Daniels, when it all gets said and done.
That seems like a no-brainer. That seems like
they've been playing footsies for about 3 years, it seems like. So yeah, I just think he's heading there when it's all said and done.
I wish I could buy stock in that, because it's going to happen.
Seriously, they need to have betting sites so that you can put that stuff on. Jason, a fighter, thank you for the $5 donation, Jason. Brandon, who are you picking to win on Thursday on the roundtable? And Brendan, you were right about changing coaches, so kudos to you.
Yeah. So who are you picking to win Thursday on the roundtable? I mean, maybe you want to save that for the actual roundtable. You don't want to give it away for free.
We'll give him a peek. I've got us winning. I think we get this at home, short week. No Devontae Adams. The first matchup gave you, I think, a lot of different things that you can kind of learn from and know what not to do as much as what to do. I think it's going to be a close game. I do like a 24-21 kind of game down the line on this one. But I am going to give us the win on this one, and I feel fairly confident, as far as confident as we can, facing this Rams team that's had our number and Stafford that's had our number recently.
Yeah, everybody should still go watch Roundtable anyway, just because he told you that. There's still plenty more to talk about, so
that's right. Please do check out tonight, 6:00 Pacific Standard Time. It's a whole different channel. It's not here on my main channel. So it's the NFC West Roundtable. That's the one you want to go check out. But thank you, Brendan. Appreciate that. Appreciate that bump there. Mm-hmm. We got a question here with Roy. Roy, thank you for dropping the $2 donation. As I know you dropped a donation to have me look at this guy. Now you're putting a donation to remind me to give you a note on that. And yes, I have gotten into Jennings Dunker. You're going to like him, Brendan. Brendan, you like Iowa linemen. I know that about you. At the very least, you like Iowa linemen, man. If there's one thing you can say about Brendan, give him an Iowa lineman, like corn on the cob with a stick of butter. He's a happy camper.
They're always at least NFL caliber. They may not make the all-pro team, but they're always going to be there for you.
They're going to be there. They're going to be competent. Jennings Dunker, he's an expert level technician of a right tackle with top end quickness and athleticism for the position. 3-year starter, dominant zone run blocker in many capacities, and solid to a degree as a pass protector, but with limitations. Quick out of the stance, plays with excellent leverage, quick striking hands. He can drive defenders off the ball. Also is really great at seal blocks. He pulls out in space with the best of them and finds defenders in space for clean blocks. accurate hand punch, good technique, good not great power, but his mastery of technique helps. Another guy, Brendan, I tell you, Iowa lineman's got a mastery of technique. You'd go, yeah, no duh. They all do. That's kind of the way that they work. It's what's fun about him and why Roy, I think, brings him up that has me a little bit wondering with him is I wonder about his length. Don't know about that. I wonder if he's going to be one of those guys that has to go to the inside because of the length stuff. Really just loved his tape and how he flashed, Brendan. He's not looked at as a first-round guy, but a guy that's just so much fun to watch on tape, such a great athletic fit for the zone scheme. And I draw daydreams with him. There's a couple of these guys, the Miami kid that's a right tackle is the same way, where I have daydreams of being able to move these guys into right guard. And that's like we've done with Zabel. I think that this is really the approach in a zone system of what you got to look for, because I look through these right guards, even in this draft at times, you get guys like Jaden Roberts at Alabama, where they might be like really good pass protectors, but then not give you a lot as run blockers, where there's a really big literal hole there in their game that you kind of need. Dunker doesn't have that. And I don't think he's going to quite fit as that right tackle because of maybe some of that length, some of that issues with pass protection and getting out wide out of his stance and really having a nice kick step slide. But a guy that I really fell in love with from the jump, Roy, and I would love to be able to take him and kick him inside. And I might end up getting to a point. I've got a second round grade on him, but I might even get to a point where I'm willing to go up a little bit higher into the end of the first round with our first round pick at that point, just to secure him, especially if the team thought that he could make that transition.
Well, I think that if you're a Seahawks fan and you're looking at Dunker, you're not looking at him as a right tackle because we just gave Abe Lucas some money. And I think Abe Lucas is playing good. I don't think there's any Seahawks fan out there that is like trying to run Abe Lucas out the door right now. So no. I don't think you're thinking about him as a right tackle. You're probably thinking, can he move to right guard? Because even left guard, like even if you're not a big Gray Zabel fan, I don't think you want to pull the plug on that experiment right now. Like it's year one. And I think most people like Gray Zabel anyway. So I do think you're looking at him as a right guard. And I haven't had a chance to really look at him in detail yet, but I am intrigued. I'll put it to you that way, because it's not really a good interior offensive line class. You're going to have to find your guy and really go to the mattresses with him, maybe.
You're probably going to have to, and especially when it comes to finding the interior guard, because I think we're going to find guys that are just kind of mismatches like that. Jaden Roberts, and Roberts is a good player, but probably needs to go to more of a pass-happy system. You know, a team like the Washington Commanders with the red zone air raid offense, so he can go from like to like with Grubb system to go to Washington. Probably that's where that guy needs to go. But this guy, I would love to see him targeted, potentially even that late first, though. I'll have a second round grade on him. It's Francis McGoy. I can't say his last name. He's got one of those Polynesian names that are a mouthful.
The Miami guy?
Yeah.
I know who you're
Miami guy. Yeah, he's a brick house of a builded guy. And I think he's another guy, a little bit like Dunker, where maybe not has quite enough there athletically to work as a tackle at the next level that you got to probably kick him in. But maybe a team that just loves the technique, loves the size, and thinks they can make it work at right tackle with both those two guys as well, which would then kind of take him off the board if somebody ends up falling in love with him in that way, you know. But thank you, Roy. Appreciate the donation over there on that one. Very kind of you guys for all the support here to the channels. And thank you for giving me that note, by the way, Roy. I always like when you guys give me a note for a player, and it's a fun prospect that I kind of start to fall in love with a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I can see why you guys were mentioning this one. Let's get over here and let's look officially at this Rams offense to kick things off, because this is where, to me, this has got to start. I know we're going to get caught up a little bit on how to attack the defense, but I think there's some simplifications on this, Brendan, when it comes to that from my perspective. So let's go first here to some of the base factor stats on this one. And then, Brendan, I'd like to get some of your ideas on what you want to see. First, we'll get to Brendan a little bit on what you saw from the first matchup specifically and what Seattle did defensively to kind of handle this offense, and then what you want to see from this game. First off, the pressure rate, second overall good. So they do a good job of keeping down the pressure for the most part. They are fifth in EPA at rushing, so a very efficient team at rushing the football. They've gotten even better. It seems like in recent weeks it's coming together for them. Both Kyron and Blake Corum are finding a role in that offense and running well. They are seventh at getting the ball out of their hands quick, 2.75 seconds, so it's very hard to get there back to Stafford. Seventh highest in blitz rate against them. I think this is a big part of what you've seen with Seattle, as well as I've got that noted that we're fourth, being that we have a lot of blitzes against us. The Rams have a good amount of blitzes, top 7. I think this is coming out of a little bit of the high rate of play action, the high rate of some of the condensed splits and the 13 personnel. Teams kind of blitz automatically off the back of this a little bit, whether it's effective or not, because blitzing Stafford is a little bit of a dicey proposition. They are 30th in average target separation. So, Brendan, they don't get a lot of separation on their routes run. It's a lot of kind of contested catch throws. Puka Nacua, of course, makes his bread and butter on this one, but kind of interesting how little separation they get. First in play action, how you defend that's going to be a big part of this game. 19th in yak. So kind of on the bottom third, as well as yak and separation, two kind of limiting factors to their receiving core. 22nd in light box rate and 15th in stack box rate. So overall, a lot of neutral fronts the teams have been throwing at the Rams throughout this year, even with that 13 personnel. And then third in the NFL in rushing inside, 31st percentage of running outside. So Brendan, I'd like to first kind of hear what do you take away first on. Let's get back. We'll go back to the prior game in a second. But what do you take on just as the head of how to attack this offense based on some of those numbers you're seeing right there?
Well, I think that one thing that Seattle did very well in that first matchup, and one thing they are uniquely equipped to do, is defend the run from nickel, because you have a Nick Emanwari, because you have a Devin Witherspoon. And I've seen some charts get posted this week about looking at every game the Rams have played this year. When they go into their jumbo sets, which is 3 tight ends, which they love this year. They run 3 tight ends more than anybody else. And the level of success they have had in every game, it's like every game is like way up here, because it's really hard for teams to deal with that 3 tight ends on the field at the same time. And then the Seahawks game is like Enron in 2000. What was it? 2000 it happened with Enron, I think. Yeah. Just chew. And then it goes back up for the rest of the season. But the funny thing is, Seattle did not go into base to combat that a lot. They kind of did what they did all year. They were still willing to kind of go down on their principles, and it worked because they have unique talent and unique players that allows them to get away with it. So I look at that and I think to myself, I think we can combat that. That's been a big part of the seat of their power this year to me, the 3 tight end stuff. So I think that's really good. That's something that can play in our favor a little bit. That's the first thing that I'm thinking about in this game. And the fact that they don't run outside at all, that they like to run it up the middle as much as they do, kind of like Indy, right? Indy's another team that will do that. And if Seattle can stop that without going into base defense to have to stop it and putting, 3 or even 4 defensive linemen on the field, that's great. So I think we're uniquely equipped to handle some of this stuff. And we proved that in the first game, right? Like the Rams offense was so much worse in that game than every other game they played this year. It felt like a different team.
It's been the big driver, I think, is this defense, is to be able to stay, like you say, in those nickels, to stay in the light boxes and still defend the run so well. I mean, to do it last week with Taylor, and that I was anticipating we might get a little bit more of the 3-4 looks last week, because it was so dicey a proposition to be like, it's one thing with Bijan Robinson, the Falcons offense, with how much they like to run outside, where you're like, we can rally to that. But the right up the gut, coming right downhill on that light box, you're really susceptible there. And they did such a good job last week with Taylor in cleaning that stuff up and limiting him. I think the longest run he had was 11 yards, and you just didn't allow anything to go down. You got better as the game went on, it felt like, and stopping the run with him. And hopefully, you'd think, Brendan, this gives you a nice preparation for dealing with this Rams attack that wants to do the same thing.
Yeah, it is. So I like that. I like that part of this game. I'll say that much. I'm not going to say that we're going to stop them the way we stopped them in that first game, because that was something that is going to be very hard to replicate. But I really do like that element of this game as we head into it.
I do as well. And I think the thing they did that stood out to me in that game, Brendan, that they've continued to do, I think, since that game really well, but they especially did this better than any game this year, was you come back to this stat that I just showed on this with the first in play action in the NFL. And I always like to say, and I usually look at it with the Hawks team when we have something where we're in an extreme place. You're 32nd in this, you're first in this from a tendency standpoint. That to me is a opportunity. That's an opportunity to attack a team that's giving you a little bit of predictability. You get to the first in play action. Now we can anticipate you're going to want to run a lot of play action. So when we've got on these play action games, a lot of what's set up with the offense is to try to get the unblocked edge to come down on the run game in the play action. What Seattle did in that first Rams matchup is, rather than him come down and help the run, they sort of said, okay, everybody else is going to help on the run. We're going to have one guy attack Stafford on the rollout, on the play action, so that when he turns around off that play fake, he's got a defender right in his face. And they really made it, I think, a point of emphasis in that game from McDonald's standpoint on how he approached that game. Boy, it made a big difference to me to really taking the teeth out of their play action game.
Yeah, I do remember that. And we didn't get any sacks on Stafford in that game. So there were some Seahawks fans that were very concerned about that. I remember getting comments, people saying, what happened to our pass rush? I mean, I think that's about as good as you can do in a game like that, the pass rush that we got. I know it's not everything you want, but it's hard to get pass rush against an offense that is locked in like that in terms of getting the ball out of the hands of their quarterback.
And Stafford's going to be a good guy about, you get the true legit pressure where other guys that get sacked. He's going to find a way to throw the ball away. He's really good about just finding that, I'll dirt it somewhere. I can find a way to get this ball out somehow. And that does make it hard, especially with sometimes his willingness, like I showed, 2.75 seconds, they get the ball out of their hand on average. So they're seventh fastest in the sport. We saw this last week with Rivers. When the quarterback's going to be that quick to get the ball out of his hands, it's going to be hard to generate the pressure. You got to have the guys that are going to hold the ball a little bit longer than that to make that occur. We got no Devontae Adams in this game, Brendan. Do you have a defense that doesn't tend to like to really adjust things for an opponent? We don't like to run spies on quarterbacks that are highly mobile. We don't run a lot of double teams in shifts and ways. I'm watching this Rams tape last night against the Lions, and again, Puka going crazy. And again, with Puka, I don't know what it is with him, Brendan. I know they scheme up some really great stuff, but the amount of blown coverages on Puka Nacua, the amount of times that guy just has guys that nobody picked him up on a play, guys dropped in his zone, but nobody decided to pay attention to this dude, and he's just sitting there wide open. It's wild to me. Do you this week draw more double teams in Puka's direction? Do you leave yourself a little outside of what yourself is from an ideology standpoint, just because they're so weak at the other receiving core positions, Tutu Atwell, Mumford, Winningham, that you go, hey, we just shut down Puka. Their passing offense will be by and large toast.
That would be my preference, I think, because we've seen teams this year refuse to do it, even when Devontae's in there, and pay for it. Like, I'm thinking mainly about that game the Rams played against the Colts, where they just would not roll coverage to Puka. And it was very odd. It was very strange. And they ended up losing a close game. And you and I even talked about it the week after, I remember on the show a little bit. It was just kind of, why would you leave yourself susceptible to that when you don't have to? Mm-hmm. So I would do it. What I would say is that there is a little bit of concern that their tight ends are going to beat you then, maybe, because their tight ends have been very effective for them. Colby Parkinson has actually had a really nice season. Kind of unlocking the best version of himself that we all hoped he would reach in Seattle. And there is a little bit of concern there, but I would rather get beat by their tight ends than get beat by Puka when Puka's beating everybody the way that he is right now. Like, it's a no-brainer.
It's a little bit like what you've seen with our offense when there has been those teams that, and it's not been very many, but with those teams that actually go, hey, we're going to take JSN away and drive that it's made our offense at times kind of struggle to find, its footing. And I think Stafford's a little bit like Darnold in this way, in that he has a great receiver and he knows how to work them. And that's a good thing. He knows how to get the most production out of those guys. But there also is a little bit of the overwork status that he can apply at times that we saw with Darnold with JSN, where there's a little bit too many targets go in that guy's direction. And if he's that set on not kind of spreading the ball around and making defenses play honest, but he's going to just hyper concentrate on that one guy, punish him for that, or take that away from him and make it hard for him then. Don't make it easy, make it hard. And like you say, if you get beat by the tight ends at that point, if Jordan Winningham is the guy that gets you, if Mumford's the guy that gets you, you tip your cap to him and you say, good job, you guys got us on that. But just don't let this guy beat you. Don't let Kyron Williams be the guy that beat you, with no Devontae out there.
Yeah, it seems like there's a formula there. Like when you really break it down, it seems like the formula should be there.
It really does. Got to a big part of this game, Brendan, is going to be how you defend that the play action boots. This is where we come back to just having a defender in his face. They're going to run a lot of those empty boots or naked boots to the weak side there, back across his body. We've had a problem at times letting the tight end get freed up coming back across the formation there. That's going to be another big key point to how we defend that in this game. And again, you don't have to defend the dragging tight end if you can just take care of the quarterback before he turns around on the play action. And so that's really why I loved that as a modification in the game plan last time, because it really did a good job of sort of taking away those plays that had not only what the Rams want to do, but what's been problematic against your defense at times as well with that given play. Remember Dalton Schultz in that Texans game? They ran it like 5 freaking times and he was open for like 15 yards. It seemed like every time.
Yeah. And it is, you see stuff like that in the NFL all the time, and it really just makes you confused. Like, what are these coaches doing? How are they earning their money if they're just going to let this happen over and over and over again?
Yeah. It's especially when it's such a stylistically a point of emphasis for that given offense and how they're looking to go. Let's turn it on over here to the defensive side of the ball, Brendan here, and Rams on the defensive side of the ball. It's kind of a little bit slightly not bad backwards, but they maybe have not been as strong as they've started out quite. Teams are passing on the Rams at the 7th highest rate in the NFL. Of course, they're ahead in football games a lot. That's going to drive that. They're 10th in pressure rate, so top third, solid. They're limiting 5th in average separation on routes, so they do tend to stay pretty tight on their in their coverage. They are 14th in time to pressure, while Seattle is 14th. So they're middle of the road in the quickness of their creating pressure. Seattle's, of course, a little bit of a slow burn pressure front. They create a lot of pressure, but it's not the fast kind all the time. 9th in pass EPA. So very, very good in their efficiency there. 27th in blitz rate. They do not blitz very often. 13th in yak, middle of the road there. They are 25th in stack box rate, 6th in light box rate, 4th in stopping the run in EPA. So good at stopping the run, good in limiting EPA pass. And they stopped the run, Brendan, by doing so on the back of a light box. What do you take away from some of these numbers about how to attack this Rams defense stylistically?
I think it just goes back to what we talked about after that first game. You got to respect and understand their goal. Their hope is to rush 4, drop 7 into coverage, and try to limit the big play. So you combat that. And the best way to combat that is to throw it short, get the ball out of your hands quickly. Probably not the week to beat your head into a brick wall on running the ball, but if you could get some kind of a run game going, it would be nice. I will say if we do not have Charles Cross, and as of right now, I would guess that we don't, just my assumption, we're not going to have Cross. It's really going to be annoying dealing with these stunts and twists without one of your key starters on the offensive line. So I'm trying to do what I can to eliminate that as a concern by getting the ball out quickly. Like the stunts and twists will not have time to get home if Darnold's throwing the ball in under 2.5 seconds. So I think if you don't do that, it's going to be a mess.
Indeed. I think to just add on top of the point with the stunts, you've got to give Darnold the security outlet option. There's going to be a heavy draw on this to draw chippers and to have tight ends helping out. A big part of the problem in the 4 interceptions with Darnold in the last game came from the fact that you had 2 guys trying to help out in pass protection that weren't running those security blanket option routes. And then you'd have 3 guys running into 7 in coverage, 3 running into 7 in coverage. And then Darnold's looking there and there's no holes to be had. I think you've got to give him almost on every play that outlet option that he can get to quick if things go to hell. Hey, Sam, you're not going to have to think about this. You're not going to have to improvise. You feel the pressure here, go hit it out there to the security outlet out in the flat. Just throw it out there. We'll take that as a plus play. Maybe it only gets you 2 or 3 yards. Embrace the 2 or 3 yards in this game. We've got to be getting into 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, Brendan. And that's got to come by positivity on early down plays to get there. It's the big key in this game because you keep the chains moving. You're able to get there. You got to run the ball. The thing the Rams do, like our light box does, I think that drives teams crazy, Brendan, is that you run the light box, which you go, man, we should be able to attack the hell out of that. And you attack it, and then you only get like 4 yards. You're like, it was so light. I should be able to get like 8 or 9 here. And they are able to clean things up so well on that where there's initially a hole, they close it down. But if you can be that team that just kind of stays on it with it and accepts that play result, and this is to me what the Niners did in the first 2 games where they knew we don't have a lot of playmakers here. We don't have this greatest, our team as a whole is struggling. We're going to take what you give us. And this Rams defense, it's about taking what they give you and not trying to get too greedy. And I don't think that we operated like that in the first game. Do you?
We definitely got greedy. I don't think there's any other way to put it. I think that, I believe 3 of the interceptions were Darnold trying to throw the ball down the field. And then you had the 4th one, which was the weird, like Tim Tebow pitch pass where I don't know what was going through his head on that play. That's a completely different thing, but there was a lot of attempting to fit it into very tight windows. And you could even argue he was trying to fit it into no window at all. I don't even know if there was a window there on a couple of those. So like, obviously Darnold owns that, but there's other people involved that own that too. And if you want to prevent that from happening, it starts up there. I think there is a way to beat this Rams defense very clearly. You talked about how Mac Jones did very well against that defense twice this year. Both games that the Niners played, I believe Mac Jones played quite well. So there is a formula out there. And if you're not willing to adopt that formula, then maybe you're not as great of a coach as we've been hyping up this season. Maybe.
Yeah, I definitely would think a little bit of that coming out if you're trying the same strat rolling into this. And I was in person to watch that Mac Jones game in LA, Niners, Rams, and see what he did. And it was just back foot, get it out of my hand, back foot, get it out of my hand. And it helped to neutralize that Rams pass rush. Wasn't the prettiest of offense, but they controlled they controlled the game, they controlled the clock, they kept their defense fresh throughout the course of that game on the back of that approach. And they've done it twice over. The second game, they didn't have as much success because their defense wasn't able to hold up as much because you didn't have Fred Warner. No, you were just down the bodies there, as we're going to see in a couple of weeks with this Niner team. But it's still a good strat. It's still one that you can replicate, being that that's the Shanahan offense, that the plays and the play designs within those games that Mac Jones is running is literally the plays and the play designs you have built within this exact same playbook. So utilize it to the utmost. And right. I don't think it has to be a tremendously complicated attack this week, Brendan. I think you can go at this from a fairly hey, find some commitment to running the ball, run downhill, stay away as much from the edges. We got to stop running I know we're outside zone stuff, but in this game in particular, Brendan, with the light box especially, you got to get downhill into that. Attack those wide 9 edges to the defensive tackles. Attack those natural crevices. Get downhill into it and get the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We've got to also remove the negative plays from the run game here today, Brendan, in this one. And I know that Kubiak wants to run the pitch plays outside, and you know that the wide zone is the big part of the rushing emphasis of this offense. But it's causing you to end up in 2nd and 12s and 2nd and 13s, which is absolutely the opposite of the intended effect of this offense and how it wants to run the ball. It wants the 3 yards in a cloud of dust, right? I mean, it's kind of the part that I haven't understood about this rushing offense, Brendan. It's supposed to be an offense about getting you the meat grinder 3 yards in a cloud of dust yards. Instead, it's more about, when you look at our rushing attack this year, it's more about getting the big plays. It's more of like you get the 15-yarder and then it's a -1, then it's a 1, then it's -2, -3, -4. Then here comes another 16-yarder here from this guy. We're not getting the consistency stuff, and it's putting us down in distances that are upending our offense. It's just not giving our offense a chance.
Yeah, no more jet sweeps where Rashid Shaheed gets the ball and runs right into 3 defenders with no blockers. That would be very preferable.
If you're gonna run a fly sweep to the side, don't run a fly sweep to the side where you're leaving the front side defender unblocked, where he just has to sit there and stand there and basically collect the guy in his arms. Block everybody to the front side if you're going to do that kind of play.
Is there a difference between a jet sweep and a fly sweep, or is it just 2 different terms for the same play?
It's just two different terms.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, you got the reverse, or you got they're basically the same thing. Got a donation here from Taker. Thank you, Taker 610, for the $5 donation. He says, if we don't win our division, I feel good about a wild card game on the road against the Bears, Eagles, or Bucks. We're 13-2 over the last 15 games.
Yeah, Carolina's the team I want to duck. I really don't want to play in Carolina in the playoffs. I know that they're not a great team, but that's the team that I think you want to be careful with. But yeah, Bears, Eagles, Bucks, bring it on. Agreed.
Yeah, there's really not anybody in the NFC that freaks me out going out on the road too. I think we got as good a chance in any of those games as anything. Rams is probably the one team to go play them at home that I'd be maybe most uncomfortable with.
Yeah,
in this conference.
I'm saying as a first round game, as a 5 seed.
Yeah.
I don't know, that Carolina team, they do some stuff that is alarming to me as a Seahawks fan.
They could be. I think we give Bryce a hard day. I think we make it very hard on him to find a lot of success with some of what he does from an undersized standpoint. But I've got good confidence against them all. I think you can hang with all these teams and you can easily take any of them down. It wouldn't shock me. I think some of the NFC hasn't gotten to be as strong as we've gotten down the end, like Eagles, Bucks. I mean, even the Panthers, it's a little bit of I know they do they play so much differently at home, but there's still the fluctuation of what you get from them week in and week out, where you never quite know exactly the team you're going to get. And I think there's a lot of that in the NFC this year, even in the good teams, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough conference, man. Somebody might win 11 games and still be sitting at home.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. It's going to be a little wild if it goes down that way, but it very well possibly could play out that way. But Taker, thank you for the $5 donation. I'm just feeling good and confident. Same reason you are. 13-2 over the last 15 games on the road. This team has learned how to play on the road well, and I feel like that would carry over in the playoffs, even against a quality opponent, as you say. One other thing I want to do in attacking the run, Brendan, if we're going to go outside run or we're going to try to throw pitch plays in this game, the one guy I want to go after in that way is going to be Emmanuel Forbes on the edge. And one thing I would love to see Kubiak do that he was not able to do in the last game, that's supposed to be a part of this offense that Shanahan did for years, and going after a guy like Woolen, for instance, is I will find a way to get my pin blocks on everybody else. And when I leave the one defender I'm going to leave is the guy that doesn't want to tackle. Like, he'll be out there isolated out in space. He'll be standing there with that, the running back's coming around the hill. They're dead lined up. Your running back just got to break that one tackle. You've got the rest of it relatively blocked up, and he could have a big play. Didn't do a lot of that in that first game, but that's what you've got to do with Forbes is he can be a pretty decent cover guy, but he's not a great tackler. And you can definitely get after him in that way.
Yeah, when I logged on to the Pro Bowl voting website and I was looking at the results the other day and I saw Emmanuel Forbes is actually currently in the Pro Bowl by fan voting, I almost punted my computer out the window. I was very like that guy was one of the bigger busts in recent memory in Washington. Like he was virtually unplayable, and then he goes to LA and remembers how to play football. That's infuriating.
It really is, especially because when you saw Washington give up on him so quickly after being a first round pick, you're like, it must be just awful. Like this guy just must be completely like a mess. And you gave him over to the Rams essentially for them to reclimate him in that way. And you're like, huh, that's kind of weird there. Felt a little bit like this with Achillea Witherspoon, where I can't ever quite understand why so much of the NFL was so out on Witherspoon, who, look, he's got some limitations himself as a player. And what you like with both those two guys on the field, by the way, quite frankly, is that you're having negatives as tacklers, even with what they can do in coverage when those two guys are on the field at the same time. But, NFL's definitely let sometimes some of these corners get over to the Rams that just didn't make a lot of sense. I know that Quinn was in there and he's a new this and new that, and he's going to, but geez Louise, they moved off of him really quick.
Yeah, it's infuriating, man. These broken parts going to LA like they need it, like not cool.
Yeah. Will Fries, thank you for the $10 donation over on Brendan's side. Will, appreciate you for that. Says, let's be honest. If Cross doesn't play, head to the casino and bet on the Rams because there's no way the Seahawks win this game.
I would like to have Cross, but I'm not convinced it takes us out. I think there are ways to mitigate the loss. I really do. And
yeah,
think about how bad offensively we had to be in that first game to lose by a field goal. Like, let's not go too crazy with this stuff.
Yeah, I think losing one player doesn't, for a team that's this good and has 11 wins on the season, and has proven it's a very deep team at that. Losing one player does not sink all of your hopes, I don't think, for the season. And I mean, let's kind of be frank at this as well. Charles Cross has had a solid year. He said solid year. That's not Walter Jones out there. He's the 26th highest rated tackle in the sport. Abraham Lucas is more higher rated than him. And that fits to the film, quite frankly. There's some bad reps you get from Cross. He's not come forward as a run blocker necessarily. He is maybe average at best with a lot of bad reps. Part of the contributing problems there when it comes to stopping the run and how it works there. As well, Jamarco Jones is playing this sport a lot. And this is not Stone Forsythe that you're trotting out there at left tackle like we have a couple of years ago. So, it's a detriment. But look, the Rams are down Devontae Adams as well. That's not going to impede them. There's not an equivalency between the two of those losses. I think that there absolutely is. In fact, you could probably even maybe make a bigger argument that the Devontae Adams loss is a bigger loss than the Rams than the Crosses would be to a loss to the Seahawks.
Yeah, it depends on what Josh Jones is. Like, one thing to keep in mind here is if you look at, and I know PFF grades, there's a lot of scrutiny around PFF grades right now. But if you look at his career, he's been atrocious every year of his career, except the 1 year he actually got to play left tackle. And that year he was graded quite well. Every other year he's been terrible, but he's always playing like right guard or right tackle where he should not be playing, where he's completely out of his element. So you put him at left tackle, you might get a pretty decent player. Like, it's not beyond the pale.
Yeah. I mean, if Cross is essentially giving us a 73.2 rating by PFF this year, can Jamarco Jones go out there and get you a 60 for a game? Yeah, I think he probably can. I think that's certainly well within his means. And you're going to set some stuff up structure-wise to help him out here and there as you can. I think as well, the thing that we have to acknowledge with this is that, Jared Verse was looked at as this guy that was going to go be a defensive player of the year kind of guy. The guy that'll be rushing from that side by and large throughout this game. I mean, he's good. He's a good player. Has he become Micah Parsons? Has he become a Myles Garrett? Like people were, like a lot of Ram fans were kind of talking him as to being this year. Has he come forward in that fashion, in that way? I mean, he's good. He's really good, and he's a good all-around player at that, but I don't know if he's quite come to that place. Do you feel like that as well?
I mean, you go on some of the the big Rams, like X pages and Facebook pages, they have these moments where they're like, what does this guy actually do? Like, let's have that tough conversation right now. Like, what is this guy really giving us? And obviously fans get a little bit irrational sometimes. I'm not saying that they're completely valid in their take of thinking that he's not good, but I do think it's fair to say he's not everything they thought he was going to be when they got him. And second year, sophomore slump, whatever. there are some concerns, I think, if you had him earmarked as a future All-Pro.
Yeah. Not that he isn't a good player and that there's some solidity there, but just that this isn't the guy that you're going up against Aiden Hutchinson with and going to go up against Jamarco Jones. I think that there's a guy in Jamarco where he can give as good as he gets here against Jared, and you can overcome this. It's not a death knell. Daniel Bailey, thank you for the $2 donation. Achilleo, the best corner in the NFL, was a healthy scratch. I didn't know that. Was he a healthy scratch last week?
That would surprise me. Who's their other starting corner then across from Forbes? Is it
Durant?
Oh yeah, the Slim Reaper. There we go. But that implies the Rams think they have like 5 corners better than Achillo, which, I mean, that would be a bold statement.
Yeah, that's kind of wild that they had him as a healthy scratch there. The thing I do come back to, though, when you're going to try to run out of Forbes and Achilleo at the same point in time, and one thing I can say for sure, for a while, Achilleo has bounced around a lot. I don't know if there's reputationally or off the field stuff with him because he can cover like hell, but he is a guy when it comes to tackling, which has not always been. He's not one of those guys, a lot of commitment to wanting to be a great tackler, and that goes back to college at Colorado. And if you have 2 of your outside corners that don't want to tackle in a game, Brennan, that's especially going up against a Lions team last week that wants to run the ball. Could have been something that came in to maybe impact that a little bit on that decision. But interesting. Yeah, Jake talks about Achilleo. Like, that's why Daniel's kind of making a joke here. Is Jake over there, Ellenbogen, talks about Achilleo like he's one of the best corners in the sport. It's like, look, best corners in the sport don't become healthy scratches on game days against a tough opponent.
Right.
Kind of doesn't work that way.
Very odd.
Is there anything else you look at offensively going into this defense that should be something that the Seattle Seahawks, is this the week to bring out a trick play? Is it a week to just try to throw 10 different outlet passes into the flat and use your run game that way? Is there anything else offensively you see that needs to be done here for success against this Rams team?
Maybe you try to throw some screens into their stunting and twisting and hope you can get a favorable favorable situation where they just have nobody in the lane. Maybe that's all I can think of. I don't want to do trick plays. Trick plays take too long to develop. I don't want Darnold sitting back there for 6 seconds on a flea flicker or something. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. So not really into that, but yeah, I kind of like the idea of maybe some screens.
Well, and I do want to just say, as we then finish up with this with Darnold, in that Sam's got to come into this game with a real tangible plan, and Kubiak's got to have a plan in place to help Darnold from himself at times. The play action rollout game talked about last week, and I think Darnold's made this adjustment since that game of the Rams, which is that when it goes late into the play, when you're sliding to your left, you got to be thinking of throw it away or run with the ball. And this has got to be a game to me where he's got to be willing to use his legs. Doesn't have to run for a lot of times, but they're not going to spy you. You're going to have some opportunities. That first interception that he threw, he's falling back. He's rotating to his left. He just takes a couple steps to his left and gets up the field. He's got probably a 6-7 yard gain there. Instead, steps out of traffic, kind of panics a little bit and tries to throw a haphazard ball to Cooper Kupp, who's being held on the play. It gets intercepted. So use the legs in this game. Roll him out at times to get him out of space. Kubiak, find him some early completions in on the game to get him in rhythm. Find him that rhythm there. Run downhill in this game. Get after this defensive line of the Rams. See if you can just mash them up mano a mano right at the point of attack. Really lean into that type of stuff. But find ways with this game plan from a Kubiak standpoint, not to protect Sam, but to set him up for success. I just felt like the last game plan did not set him up for success in any way. And you've got to, against a great opponent like this, you've got to bring that to the table.
Was that intentional, by the way? You said the funny number.
What I did
6-7 yards. Yeah, you did it. You did the thing. Yeah,
hey, I did the thing. Did the deal.
Right. You did the thing, guys. You got to like him for the thing. Give him a like for the thing.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's get to the prediction time, Brendan. I already dropped my Prado. You give me your Prado here. How does this game play out? And then what is the final score?
Well, I'm scared. I will admit that I'm scared, but I'm just going to go down hoping that Colts game was a little bit of a trap game because you were thinking about this one. And if they did spend the last 2 weeks thinking about this game, then we should be getting something pretty good. So I'll go with Seattle 23, LA 20.
Who's the hero coming out of this game for the Seattle Seahawks?
Jason Myers. He's on a roll.
Jason Myers. Back-to-back heroes with Jason Myers. We didn't give him any love this last week, but how about Jason turn around this season and 6 field goals, greatest kicking game in Seahawks history. Had to earn it, multiple 50-yarders, game winner. Even the kick at the end, I don't think he's getting enough props for the kick at the end, Brendan, because he's so good at that kick, squib, roll thing that he does. Yeah. And you took 7 seconds off that clock. That was a big deal to what that did to the Colts offense for their what they did play calling wise, to go beyond that then. So props to Myers, man.
He's 7 shy of the record.
NFL record?
Yeah, all-time NFL record, 44 field goals made in one season by David Akers. Myers is at 37. So if this offense keeps doing what they're doing,
he's getting that. Yeah, he's getting that. That's money in the bank right there. You talked about needing something to bet on. Let me go bet on that. That's hell. It's in our picks this week, folks, with the sleeper. Yeah. So he's definitely going to hit that mark, and he might hit it by a good amount. He might round that thing and pass it by. Matthew, thank you for becoming a new member of the channel. Matthew, love the emoji there as well. That's great. You saw the one a couple of years ago from that one, right, where he's on it and he like flies away. Somebody used like the Dora thing. Now that stuff's getting crazy.
Oh, Sora. Yeah, Sora.
Yeah, they had him like flying away in the deal. But Matthew, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Please keep an eye on your community posts. That's where we put the benefits from my side of things over for members of the channel. Want to really thank all of you guys for watching today. Well over 400 on in the chat here today, rolling and going. I know you guys are hyped up for this game. If you can do me this favor, please do get subbed up to both my side here, the Hawks Nest, or if you're watching over Brendan's side or not watching on Brendan's side, get subbed up over to him too. It's Seahawks Brendan Nelson out here on YouTube. And Brendan's got a little bit of an announcement as well in regards to SI.
Right. I mentioned it earlier, but I have been picked up by Seahawks on SI. I'm writing 2 articles a day for them right now. Started yesterday. So I got 4 articles up already. Going to have another 2 going up tomorrow. As time goes on, maybe it'll be a little bit more. Some days maybe a little bit less, but I'm now a daily participant in Seahawks on SI, a part of the on SI network. So go check it out. And that's where you can find some of my new content.
You got to own some of the swagginess of this, Brendan. It's Brendan Nelson, Sports Illustrated journalist. That's how you put that now. Doesn't that have a nicer ring to it?
Yeah, they've been pretty clear that they want it very, very hammered in that it's on SI. It's like the phrasing they use is like part of Sports Illustrated is on SI network. So
I'm going to say you're a Sports Illustrated reporter. That's how I'm calling it. Okay. They can get mad at me. They can come sue me if they want. Okay. That's what I'm calling it though. But no, Brendan on SI, please do go check out those articles. Congrats to you, Brendan. Well earned on your part with that. Really cool to hear as well. And please do guys check on that side of it. We will be back next regular time Thursday for a BNB show at that time, looking at this game. Maybe go a little bit early. We'll see how next week goes as far as how things set up with that. But I really do thank you guys for watching today. Please use again that Sleeper app for your picks, as it is Sleeper is both sponsoring me and Brendan right now. Again, you can use either Nest or SBN and use that code on the Sleeper app. They'll give you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. $100 from me to you, from me and Brendan to you, and you support our channel at the very same time. Terms and conditions do apply, but do thank you guys for using that code as you guys are throughout the course of this year. And I thank you to Sleeper for sponsoring the show. Brendan, let's go get this win, man. Let's go set this stage like this team has done so much throughout the course of this year. Let's find a way, hook or crook. Doesn't have to be pretty. I don't want to hear about style points. Get this dub on Thursday. Get the mini bye to get yourself to that dangerous Carolina Panther team that you just talked about. And let's finish this season off strong. That sound good to you?
It sounds great to me, man. It sounds great. Let's finish this. Like, this is an opportunity to make this fan base feel great about this team's chances when they get in. You win this game, pretty much everybody's going to have the highest possible aspiration on their mind.
You'll get the locals finally dreaming big. I think there's a little bit of a sense in Seattle fan land of like, well, we're almost ready to be sold on this team, but are they going to break our heart again? Are they getting ready to break our heart again? They've broken it so many times the last couple of years. It feels like it's ready to happen. It's going to happen. So they're just ready to come over the edge of the other side of that. A win like that, like you said, would get that job done. Not to mention, put you in that sight line dead on to go get that number 1 seed, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. It's right there for the taking, Brendan. It's right there at the end of our fingertips. I was relating, Brendan. It's like an action movie, where the stars he's like getting choked out and he's kind of like reaching for the knife and the little tips of his fingers are getting to the knife and he's pulling the knife in. He's almost got a grip on the knife and then just does this move, feels like we're right on the edge there with that knife with the tips of our fingers, like just about almost got it grabbed. So yeah, let's go get it. Let's go grab it, Hawks. Let's get this done. Cal, thank you for Industry Worth It. Another $2 donation, finishing it off right. And I want to thank all the folks, Daniel Bailey, Will Fries, Taker 610, Roy Froelich, Jason, Freddie, Thanos, Strike, Brent, Chop, Samuel, Banker, Dublin, Seahawker, Peter Go Hawk, Slobby One, Feed Me. Thank you guys all for all of your guys' support here on the channel. Really is appreciated from me and Brennan. We really thank you guys for that, as you are great with both of our two channels. All right, we'll be back in a week, guys. And we're going to be back in a week, hopefully celebrating a big Seahawks win. In fact, the biggest Seahawks win of the NFL season. So ride with us into next week. Let's go get this win. Thank you for watching today. Hit that like button, sub on up on either side that you're watching this on. But please don't you ever forget, don't you dare do it. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.